Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another BRAP. It is Wednesday, I almost said July, November the 12th. And wow, we're getting to the end of the year here, and we have a lot of gaming news to discuss. I mean, talk about a bombshell of an announcement today. We're going to get into Steam. Now, if you've listened to the show, we've discussed the rumor, which it actually is no longer a rumor, but it's now confirmed. We had discussed the rumored Steam machine, and that was announced today. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about what the potential impact to that is of the speculated, if you will, Xbox hybrid PC, which is supposed to be Xbox's next console. It's not a console. It's essentially a PC. It's going to be this hybrid device, right? That's a small form factor PC, similar to what you're seeing with the Steam machine now. So we'll get into that here a little bit. I believe Nib will be joining us. I'm not sure exactly he was supposed to, but Nib is 5 hours ahead, so it's a little bit late. It's probably closer to 2 a.m. his time, I think. Yeah. So, and then Falky's supposed to be joining us as well, discuss the Sony financials, and then we also have Game Logic will be joining us here in just a bit as well. But I want to thank everyone for watching the chat, or not watching the chat, but watching the show. Please do me a favor, do the YouTube thing, hit the like button, let everyone know that we're live. The like button helps people find the channel. Anything you do to support the channel, really appreciate it. As always, big shout out to Ghostface Killa, Chrono Rig. Chrono Rig says, this is what happens when you don't have exclusives to make yourself look different. Look, I'm going to say this again, and I really don't understand the idea around. It's funny, Chris String just put out, this is an Xbox, and he has a picture of the Steam machine, and that's actually a great point. I mean, well, I don't think you could play. I don't think you have access to Game Pass on the Steam Deck. I think there's a workaround you need to do, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Let me see something here. There's something I saw earlier today. What just happened here? Give me a second here. Just trying to find this tweet. Again, this is the conversation around exclusivity is kind of reared its ugly head again. Why is this showing? I'm sorry. Give me a second here. All right. Croderich says, I'm actually curious if Sony can do anything or should do anything about their exclusives on the Steam machines where it won't matter. I don't think it matters, Chrono Rig. I mean, their exclusives exist on. You got to remember, the Steam machine's a small form factor PC. It's not a console. It's not a gaming console. It's not, so this, and so their games are still, on Steam. Although they launch on Steam, much later. They're not day and date, which I think is important. I think it's important to mention that too. A lot of people tend to say things like, well, they no longer have exclusives. No, they do have exclusives. They have exclusives. They have regional exclusives. They have time exclusivity. They have platform first exclusivity. Those are still product differentiators. They still differentiate. It's not just the thing. It's not just the game physically existing on PlayStation. There's certain features, right, of a PlayStation game that on PS5, right, in terms of DualSense support, the Tempest audio support that you're not going to find on PC. So it's not necessarily going to be a one-to-one experience all the time. And that is a big that is something many, and I'm watching AEW right now. It's blood and guts. I'm sorry. For those of you who don't know, I do often watch professional wrestling in the background here as I'm broadcasting live, and watching AEW again, blood and guts tonight on AEW Dynamite. And Hangman Adam Page just threw Powerhouse Hobbs off the second row balcony. Well, say second row balcony off the balcony, right? Where the stands are, not probably about 10 feet, 15 feet, onto a table that kind of exploded. I say kind of exploded, did explode. So a lot of conversation around, if you're a wrestling fan, around the prices. The prices around the tickets for WWE events, very expensive. But anyway, I'm not going to get to wrestling. But yeah, I don't think so, Chrono. I don't think they need to do anything, to be honest with you. I mean, they still have exclusivity on the platform. They're still selling you a curated experience. They are, yes, while they certainly do release their games on. This is so funny. I'm gonna have to bring up Twitter here in just a minute. People are funny. Yeah, they don't have to do those things. They don't. Let me get Nib in here real quick. Nib.
Hello, I am here.
Hey, Nib. Should I say good morning, good evening? It's a
well, I did just wake up, so I guess.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Nib,
my routine is so messed up right now.
Sounds like you took a power nap and then hopped on
exactly
BRAP.
Right.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Nib.
You know when you gave my son a shower, got him ready, put him into bed, and then next thing I know, I wake up. I'm like, whoops, I'm in bed with him.
Yeah, well, excuse me. Yeah, no, I hear you. So some of us we're going to get to this later on, Nib. Obviously, the big announcement today is the announcement of the return of the Steam machine, right?
Yeah.
After a 10-year hiatus. Although there's a little bit of caveats here with the old Steam machine.
I agree.
Yeah,
it's a weird one. I mean, we'll get to it, but yeah.
And then we're gonna discuss the PlayStation quarterly results. But again, Nib, here we are again, having conversations around exclusives. It's only, look, I'm gonna be very blunt here. It is only one group of gamers that says exclusives don't matter, and that is because they've taken marching orders from their messiah, Phil Spencer.
Yeah.
Now, I'm having fun here. I know somebody better. Stop constant warning, rap. Look. All you guys who hop in my chat and DM, or not DM, on Twitter, not my chat, but who quote me on Twitter and console war. Look, I'm not pulling punches tonight. It is. Look, let's just call a spade a spade. The people that are advocating and saying exclusives don't matter happen to be the ones that are fans of the platform that lost the console war.
I'm already seeing tweets calling the Steam box the future of gaming, and this PC hybrid the future of gaming. Like it's it's like every other thing is always the future of gaming. Cloud is the future of gaming. Game Pass is the future of gaming. Split SKUs is the future of gaming. Kinect is the future of gaming. Everything is always the future of gaming, at least depending on whatever one particular platform is doing. It's funny.
No, you're not wrong. I mean, everything literally is the future of gaming. I have lived this, and I'm gonna hop on my soapbox here for just a second here, Nib. But I have lived this for 13 years on Twitter now, where there has been one fan base that literally literally anything that Microsoft does, oh, this is the future. I'll never forget, Nib, when the Xbox One released. Oh, wait,
Yeah,
ESRAM's going to make up the difference.
yeah,
Oh, wait till they untether the Connect. It's going to make the
yeah.
difference. Oh, they're going to make up the power difference with the cloud. Guys, stop.
I'll tell you
Just
the frustrating
stop.
thing for me, and this is, I guess, the annoyance for me is usually whatever it is that they're pushing as the future of gaming is something that doesn't resonate with me. Now, and I know people are, oh, it's because it's Xbox. No, it's not. Like at the moment, some of the things PlayStation is doing does not resonate with me, right? And I think this is how you can kind of tell like a fanboy from like just a fan and someone who sticks with their convictions. Because I would say the things I've always favored, from day one in gaming. For
Mm.
example, I've always been anti cross gen games, right? I don't want my games held back by a much weaker hardware when I've just paid a lot of money for this new premium next gen hardware. I want games designed from the ground up for the better hardware. I get a better value proposition that way. I get more advanced games, not inhibited in design and so forth, right? And there's so many things like that. Like again with the PS6, I don't really want my PS6 higher powered box potentially held back by a much weaker handheld, right? It is what it is, right? But then with these guys, like when we talk about like Kinect, again, I do not want a bloody high performance console held back by or having to design around this kind of follow the tribe, follow the next big thing, Connect design. In the same way, I don't want a split SKU where the more powerful console is held back by a much weaker, Series S. I'm consistent in that. Same with the PS6. Or like cloud performance. I don't want to have to rely on latency sensitive cloud compute advantages. I'd rather just have the local box be more performant, right? And now obviously they're pushing PC hybrid. I do not want a PC hybrid because that actually gives me less performance and optimization sort of specificity, because instead of running an OS that's purely centered around gaming, it's going to run a Linux or obviously Steam. Valve is different. They're not going to do a console, then they're going to do a Steam box. I appreciate that, but with Xbox I don't want it running Windows. I don't want it having more layers of abstract. I don't want it to be less custom. I want it to be designed, customized specifically to maximize games for a console sphere, but they're kind of doing something that's more on the PC sphere, which will inevitably have more optimization abstract. So everything that they kind of champion is not something that adheres to what I want as a gamer. And the thing is, like, they talk about like play anywhere, play anywhere. Xbox has had play anywhere for like the better part of nearly a decade now. What has it done for them? I think you got to understand at some point that these are really niche things. Most people don't give a toss about play anywhere. Like actually, a lot of consumers don't even care about BC. PS4 was one of the most successful consoles ever. It wasn't BC with PS3. So yeah, I mean, obviously these days it's a bit different with digital libraries and stuff, but the point is that there's a lot of things that people are pushing that wider consumers are showing us that they don't really prioritize. Even Game Pass is supposed to be the future of gaming, and yet the console that you can get Game Pass, remember all those same influencers we're talking about, they kept saying year after year, Game Pass is the game of the year. Game Pass is the best value in gaming. And did that push people to buy an Xbox over a PS5 or Switch? No, it didn't, because Game Pass, is more for a niche of core gamers that need access to, so many games or all the first party Xbox games. The masses didn't really gravitate to it. They're fine getting the games that they buy annually, whether it's FIFA and Call of Duty and bloody all the rest of it, and the exclusive on PlayStation and Nintendo. That is what compels them. Not having hundreds of games. They don't even play or buy hundreds of games. They only play, they buy, I think we had data that shows they buy 1 to 3 games a year or something. So why are masses gonna, so the point is, like, every time they're pushing something that I feel is not really what consumers want, or is not even, it doesn't even adhere to what I want. So for that reason, I'm maybe more anti these things than some people, might like. But
Yeah. And by the way, for some reason I'm running 2 streams. Something happened with StreamYard where it's running.
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if I can change that right now. Let me see something.
yeah. I'll be honest. It's weird. Like, I don't really understand why there's that same contingent of people is hyping again. Like, if it's great, amazing. I've had every single Xbox, right? But I do feel this hybrid might actually be the first one I don't buy. And the reason I say that, the things that concern me, right? One, this rumored $1,000 to $1,500 price. Okay, now if that was purely on the merits of performance, amazing, straight up my alley, right? Awesome. Higher the performance console, the better. But the problem is, I know it's not going to be purely based on the merits of performance, because Satya Nadella himself, in an interview recently, and Jason Schreier's article, Insider Information, talks about Xbox and Microsoft being really aggressive with higher margins, right? They want to push this like 30% margin thing. If that does filter down to the hardware and it's no longer subsidized, it's not going to be really expensive because it's so much more performant. It's going to be really expensive because it's made with a high margin, or a margin that is atypical for high performance consoles. And I know even PlayStation is probably not going to take a loss anymore. Maybe they'll go for a small profit or break even at launch or something like that. But the point is, Xbox could be going for a higher margin, and therefore the true value of that console could be like, $700, $800, $900, but they're charging well over $1,000 for it. Like, it could be a situation like that. And then obviously, because of the hybridized factor and the Windows and OS and all of that, you may not be getting as much finite optimization and performance for your money as you did in prior generations. So I'm still a bit, we'll see about that.
You're just a cheap ass. That's all you are.
Oh, I didn't hear
Falky,
that. Hey, David, how you doing, mate? You okay?
Falky, did you call him a cheap ass?
I did. I said he's just a cheap ass. That's all he is.
Oh no.
So apparently I have 2 streams are going. One stream's actually for like if you're watching on TV, a tablet, PC. The other one's more like mobile friendly, I guess. More like it looks like a YouTube short video.
All
I don't know
right.
how that happened, by the way.
No.
There's 2 streams going on right now. But Falky, welcome to BRAP, Falky. You know what? It's great seeing Falky because that means that we made it to Thursday.
You did just.
He said we just made it.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's a nice day today, actually. Bit windy, but no, sun is shining and the world continues to carry on in its merry way in its very different ways, shapes, and forms. And no, it's going all right. We made it. We made it.
We it sounds like we barely made it, Falky.
Well, I woke up to depending on which social media you follow and what you believe, and what you follow along on that said social media, which is 98% bullshit and 2% lies. The world is ending for multiple different reasons, but it's the same crap we've heard for the last 5 years. So I don't know. They'll get it right one day.
Wait, why is the world ending? Is this some business related thing, or is it to do with gaming?
Oh, both.
Okay.
Steam makes its announcement, and it's the death of everything, and it's you see the other stuff coming out of US
The funny
political,
thing
death
is,
of everything.
I heard similar about the Steam Deck when that launched, and it's made huge inroads on the Switch, hasn't it? It's like, come on, dudes, come on.
No inroads on the Switch. It's been. I don't know if anyone watches on YouTube a channel called Feudician.
Yeah.
There's the plump guy on there who's really, really smart, really good marketing. He'd probably be difficult to work with, I would say, but he understands what he's talking about.
Wait, who are you talking about?
Oh, I can't remember his name. He's a
Who
consultant.
does he work for?
He works for himself. He's a consultant, and he goes around doing. I'll share it with you. And he loves talking about different marketing employees and techniques and whatnot. And I love watching the shorts because it's common sense stuff, but most people don't share that common sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, one of the things he talks about is a couple of different videos about when you do market differentiation and pricing. And if you get into a zone of pricing where people don't see it as cheap or expensive, then they won't buy it. It's got to be one way or the other. You need to be signaling stuff. And it's an interesting one, because I always think that if you look at gaming and there's always this conversation around will it, won't it, should it, shouldn't it. The Steam Deck, when it released, everyone, and the same with the ROG Ally and the Xbox ROG Ally and all that sort of stuff, is, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. And all they did was put it at a premium price point, which made the Switch 2 look even better. That's all it did. So there's no way it was going to chew into Switch sales, no matter how powerful or how awesome they were putting it out there to be. At that point in time, all they did was say, drive the value proposition forward for a Switch 2.
Yeah, here's the ironic thing about that, right? Is Gabe Newell did an interview where he said the pricing they did on the Steam Deck was very painful, but it's a sacrifice they have to make. And, a lot of people, myself included, inferred that maybe they are subsidizing. I think there was another article talking about how the lower priced entry model Steam Deck was sold at a loss. And that's the irony of it. Even with being subsidized, it still didn't, it's selling kind of like accessory pricing numbers. I say accessory pricing numbers because like Portal is within the same ballpark, but obviously that's not like a proper handheld. It's just an additional accessory. So even with subsidizing that thing, it hasn't sold gangbusters.
Yeah. And it gets into an interesting discussion, which is this whole thing around Steam and the pricing of all this other stuff. And I'm still digesting some of it because there's a lot of, bullshit you got to wade through to get to fact. And what I'm seeing of it is they're carrying on about this, there's that. They could compete here, they could do that. They can't do jack shit because they're a privately owned entity. They do not have the massive financial backing that these global conglomerates do, and they can't afford to take that level of risk. So this whole notion of they can tool up and skill up and off they go and raise money and they're going to compete and belt the pants off Xbox and PlayStation. This is a console and all that garbage. This thing's at least $1,000, if not more. And it's built to PC specs. And depending on whose spec sheet you're looking at, it's barely much better than a PS5 baseline. But it's not going to outperform a PS5 Pro. So how's it going to belt the pants off a PS6?
David, if I think it's going to come in much cheaper, substantially.
Well, gentlemen, let's table that conversation.
If it is that price rate, forget about it. But I have a feeling that they're going for affordability.
Yeah, let's table that. Let's table that and come back to it, because I do want to. I did bring Falky on to discuss some financials, because Falky is a subject matter. Because that's what, when you come to BRAP, by the way, when you come listen to the show, we're not here to bullshit you. We're not here to fucking pom. We're not here to like spread misinformation. This is why we have subject matter experts. We have financial analysts such as Falky here to come on the show and discuss these earnings reports, to break them down, answer any questions, actually provide good insight, and not these wackadoodle, as Logic likes to say, theories about what is and isn't happening as it relates to financials. But before we get to that, Falky, I want to get to super chat here. The Gaming Ledger with a $10 Canadian says, saw certain content creators who say consoles are dying is now saying the future of gaming is a Linux PC running Windows ports that is trying to imitate a console. Amazing stuff. Yes, these people, they like to twist themselves into these, weird.
They are members of the Cirque du Soleil fan club, mate.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, I do have a special guest to announce here. I do want to welcome Mr. Gabe Newell himself. I'm going to add Gabe Newell here to the show. Gabe Newell, thank you for joining BRAP.
Thanks, man. Thanks. It's been 21 years in the making or so, but we're finally here to take over the living room and give players the open ecosystem that they've been asking for.
Gabe, can I get my Half-Life 3, please? Could you hurry up with that?
We're not going to talk about that tonight. Consoles have not launched with a killer app for a generation or two now. It's no longer a prerequisite. I think that time's over.
Well, what about the ports to console? Come on, modernize. What's going on here?
What are you talking about?
Where's my Half-Life on PS? Where's my Half-Life on PS?
You talking about all the indie games that the PlayStation 4 launched with? I don't think those were. I don't consider those really killer apps. PC gamers had played those games like a year before they launched on the PlayStation 4.
All right. Well, Logic, welcome to the show. So Falky, we have PlayStation Quarterly here. Q2. What came out of that too? Despite a lot of the hate, which is odd around Ghost of Yotei, sold 3.3 million copies. A lot of nutty people running with the narrative that it's underperforming, it's undersold, it's weak. I would beg the question: is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 week? It sold 4 million copies in about 4 months or so on 3 platforms. I don't see people running to that game and saying, "Oh my God, the sales are weak." Again, stupid narratives by stupid people. I'm not being nice tonight. Look, I've had enough. I'm done. I'm done being nice. I don't understand some of the crazy, like I think you said it, Falky, Cirque du Soleil behavior that we see around video games. I mean, it's ridiculous. But Falky, so PlayStation, they're reporting 84 million in lifetime sales for the PS5. They are virtually on pace with the PS4, and I think that's pretty significant given the fact, Falky, that they launched the PS5 during the pandemic with massive, major issues, challenges in the supply chain. And then, as you know, more recently, more macroeconomic or inflationary dynamics, and they haven't even lowered the price of this thing.
And it's it's going up and down and up and down and up and down. It's where it's working on the corner the way it's going up and down.
But even then, right? Even I knew that they've increased the price. It's gone, but I'm saying like the $500 like baseline price launch.
Yep.
It hasn't dipped below 500. Where with the PS4 Pro launch, there was a price reduction of the PS4. We haven't seen that this generation.
No, they're not.
No, it's gone up. It's going up.
Yeah.
So there's up and down. They tell us the reasons for doing it, but it's a change in. I don't know. They did 4 generations of the same strategy, and then they've changed the strategy for the PS5. And Nintendo's changed its strategy as well when it did Switch, the original Switch, where they're not keen to lower the price of the console because of the reduction in recurring game purchases that are occurring. You pointed out before, they're only buying 2 to 3 games a year, whereas in previous generations, when everything was physical, there might be 6, 7, or 8 games a year as the metric. Now, they might not all be bought brand new, but the retailers were certainly happy to have the second-hand market rolling around. And that's still a dark area for these with the digital platforms deliveries. But if they've only got a couple of games, you can't run a loss lead strategy with the consoles unless you've got a high volume of games being purchased. And the volume's dropped off. When I say the volume's dropped off, the volume of game purchases is stagnant compared to the number of users that are engaged in it. And you can see that there's with the digital libraries, there's difficulties in getting people to jump from one gen to the next gen because of that back compatibility in the digital library carryover. So if there's a silver lining in it, fair enough. It's not great that they've maintained the price or gone up in price because of economic conditions, but they're not relying on huge volume of game sales to underpin the console. And in the financials itself, I read the financials. There were 2 things that stuck out to me, but it was one of the most boringest set of financials they've released in a long time because it's steady as she goes. The 2 things that stuck out was the impairment against an intangible asset rather than the goodwill, which I thought was very curious and potentially very telling. And the other piece was that their inventory went up substantially. But in terms of the console sales and that part itself, there was an increase in revenue from console sales year on year, but there was an increase in volume of console sales year on year. So it's not like they've made that increase in revenue because the price has gone up or they've maintained a higher price. They actually sold 100,000 more consoles in that quarter than the same time last year, which is habitually a slow quarter. So, or historically a slow quarter. So, yeah, the price is high, but it's not really hampering their ability to sell these things, which is an interesting perspective. How much of that is coming from the tail off in other areas? People swapping over from other places? Well, we don't really get an accurate sales figure of all the PCs or PCs that can do gaming, so there's no real telling if it's transitioned there or not. But the Xbox information indicated their hardware sales were down significantly, but their hardware sales are potentially down sub 500 million in terms of revenue generation. Like it's in a quarter, it's getting pathetic. Whereas PlayStation's still maintaining revenue up in the area, so it's still growing in a stagnant, and some could say it's a flatlined market at the moment, with the amount of change that's going on and engaging new people into it. No one wants to switch off from what they've already got for fear of the unknown. It's quite an interesting point of view, but it's no different to what they said they were going to do, and then they increase their forecast because of it. So, yeah, it's
Yeah.
there wasn't actually much to look at, to be honest.
I'll be honest. I was actually surprised that the hardware was up year on year. Obviously, Xbox was down minus 29%, but that is actually that's 3 Q1 quarters in a row. So 3 years in a row of decline on Xbox, whereas PlayStation's increase is on the previous increase. So I was actually a bit surprised because, like, at the end of the day, this is very tail end of the generation. The PS5 is still very high priced. In fact, like the PS4 Slim launched, I think, after 3 years into the generation at like $300, but you could get it on Black Friday deals and other sort of offers throughout the year for like $250. So the PS5 is like almost double the price. It's selling very close. In fact, in the United States, it's selling faster than the PS4. It's only sort of Europe and stuff that things it's slightly behind. Hence, the total number is, I believe, 2 million units behind PS4. But that's 2 million units behind PS4, which is a margin of error. It's like very small, paltry difference. With significantly higher price, with COVID stock shortages for 2 to 3 years. So yeah, like it's really surprising, especially so late in the generation, that it's still growing in sales. I have to admit, it wasn't on my radar, and we don't even have GTA 6 yet. What's it going to do when GTA 6 drops? It's going to be sort of like its swan song, I guess. But yeah, no, it was interesting. Like, it was kind of. I'll pull up my tweet actually. By the way, Brap, I was just going to say, you mentioned Kingdom Come. It's actually 4 million in 8 months. Not 4 months. So 8 million in 4 months.
So I'm sorry. 4 million in 8 months on
everything. And it had a development budget of 41 million. Ghost of Yotei has roughly a development budget of 60 million. So it's not like
that's an ROI of over 250%.
Exactly.
And
it's
insane.
That,
it's a failure. They can go do one
Falky,
of the they think that's a failure.
Falky, that's a flop.
Yeah. But yeah, going back to PlayStation, like I've got my tweet up. So yeah, revenue is up, hardware is up, network services is up quite a lot actually, 14%. Game software is up, full game units up, monthly users is up as well. Obviously, like I saw some, again, I won't name names, but some of the regulars doing quarter by quarter. The financial statements are not quarter by quarter, they're year on year, because obviously certain quarters are inherently always quieter or more busy, so they don't really give much credible or meritable comparison. And it's it's annual growth that you want to look for. But yeah, so
it's a widely accepted process, or a widely accepted habit amongst anyone who knows anything about finance, that you don't compare quarter on quarter when you want to get a snapshot of if something is growing or not. You have to compare year on year, because of the trading conditions and environments are most aligned at that point. So sorry, I just want to add that.
Exactly
right.
So yeah, it was really strong. The only thing that was down is
I don't think you can say that on the show, Falky.
Yeah, so the only thing that was down year on year was operating income, minus 13%, But obviously, Falky touched on it. It was because of impairment losses to a portion of Bungie, as well as an expenses correction on development costs. But they do, obviously, they're not recurring losses. And PlayStation did make a point of stating that excluding those, operating income would have been plus 23% or over $1 billion, I think close to 1.2 billion. But obviously, even with those additional costs or losses, they still made nearly $1 billion in operating income. So it's not like they didn't make a profit. 830 million profit is still decent for a single quarter, especially, this late in the game. So yeah, I mean, across the board, it's very positive results. I was expecting a bit more red. So cool. Good for PlayStation, I guess. And, if these cost cutting measures come in, or maybe they can lower the price on the console at some point going forward, and with GTA 6 and stuff like that, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, conversely, on the Xbox side, it you can compare directly to the last quarter, ending September 30th with Xbox as well. And that was, I would say, a bit more tumultuous because, like, they had obviously the much bigger hardware decline. They had total gaming revenue decline of 2%, and they had content and services revenue increase of 1%. But it does state in the financials that accounting for currency benefit or deviation, it would have content and services revenue would have been 0% growth. Now, the reason that is like quite interesting is because last September, just before, they actually had a 20% increase. Well, roughly, it's different pricing, but depending on the category, but overall, roughly 20% increase in Game Pass subscription costs. And in addition to that, this year and this for Xbox, it's Q1. This Q1, they actually had bigger releases, more prominent releases in Gears, etc., and bigger PS5 games as well that released the previous quarter but would still be selling. So across the board, I was actually a little bit surprised because I would have expected a higher revenue growth, especially on content and services. Obviously, total revenue, I can imagine is going to take a hit from the hardware loss, but at least content and services, because you've got 20% increase, you've got better games, bigger games, better selling games. So why is content and services revenue still flat? That's kind of weird to me. Something's going on. They must have declined somewhere, or something is bringing that bump down. But either way, it's an interesting thing. But that is also like the first Q1 where ABK is part of the fold, and we can see now that ABK is part of the fold, and they don't have that big initial jump in growth because of adding ABK. Things have kind of flatlined now. They're not seeing the growth that the other platforms are, so it's quite interesting, but maybe a little bit disconcerting. I don't know.
Let me grab the super chat here real quick, gentlemen. T-Rock, the $5 super chat says, I think Microsoft should call their next piece of hardware the Xbox, and Steam should call theirs the Noob Cube. It does actually, the new Steam machine does remind me a little bit of the GameCube, which we'll get to that topic here in just a little bit. But Falcon, was there anything else that stood out to you about the Q2 2025 financials here?
Yeah. So the physical digital split came back like nearly 10%, I think, into the mid 70s range. The first party game sales obviously wouldn't have included Ghost of Yotei. But the
6.3 million units for first party software sold, right? Yeah.
So it's not that, it's not markedly worse than last year. But the forecast update was interesting. So the total sales got a increase. They would have known about GTA 6 being pushed before they released all this information. The improvement in the tariffs impact is also quite an intriguing one. So they obviously don't think that the tariff situation is going to have a large ongoing impact. And yeah, the impairment thing was because it was an impairment directly against an IP intangible asset in Destiny 2 and not against the purchase of Bungie itself through the goodwill. Sort of, it flags to me that they've potentially made a decision that thing's end of life is coming forward. Because you've really got it, like, and Nib will understand this and Logic will as well. When you do an impairment test under the new generally accepted accounting principles, you do an impairment test, there's a few different factors you got to bring in. And most of the time, accountants can wave that stuff past and go, yeah, well, we expect that future decisions made will realize the value that we're going to get here. From a cash flow perspective, we're not going to do it based off a marketable assessment, because the only way you can get a market value assessment on an intangible IP would be to basically test it for sale. And there's no way you're going to sell Destiny as an IP, particularly if you've got, TV show and a heap of other merchandise and stuff in development, and people still play the game. And you can still get monetization out of it in that way. But it's flagging to me by them doing that rather than affecting the goodwill, because the goodwill would have been a much easier thing to have impaired, that they've probably made a decision that there's end of life for Destiny 2 coming a lot sooner than was originally planned. And then the explanation of, well, it just hasn't performed to how we thought it was. So the first DLC shitting the bed big time is probably going to factor into that. But then their last major update performed exceptionally well, better than expected. So I suspect that they've turned a corner on it and they're not prepared to keep funding it into perpetuity. But that was the piece that I found really intriguing. That they'd go down to that specific level.
Yeah.
Because it would have been so much easier to have just done it against goodwill. And it begs the question, if they've done that, other than what's coming, in this environment, who else is going to have to do impairments because of cash flow? Like, there's some big acquisitions that were done that, Take-Two's had to do one. Sony's now, or PlayStation's done one. Who else was playing in the consolidation game a couple of years ago that are going to have a really hard look at what's going on?
Yeah, the thing is,
Microsoft,
Xbox doesn't release profit margins, right? Or operating income, anything like that, or gross margin or whatever for Xbox. But when they did release it about ABK, because they did actually for the first year, ABK made a tremendous post-acquisition loss. Like it was billions. I think it was 3.7 billion or something like that. So we talk about the acquisition cost being, what is it, 75.4 billion. But there was post-acquisition losses that were in the several billions. So the actual cost was much greater to Xbox, and obviously there's been ramifications of potentially things not going according to plan, or maybe Call of Duty not having the push for Game Pass that they expected, because they've already had aggressive layoffs that far supersede what is typical post-acquisition, a large-scale acquisition. We're not talking about like a 7 to 9% headcount cut. We're talking about like in the realm of 20%. So it's kind of catastrophic. It's high, and it's still ongoing as well. Like the reports are, they're going to have even more layoffs throughout the year. So I don't know. It's just very messy over there at the moment.
And because it's a unique one-off, so it sits in a different part of the financials, which is probably why it sticks out so much. But having that adjustment, excluding that adjustment just for normal BAU operating point, their operating income improved 23%. So remember, they're still coming to the back end of this surgical work they're doing on their cost structure that Lin Tao was orchestrating and leading the charge on, while Totoki was the CFO and CEO and boss of everything else going on before they did the shuffle. That ingrained approach to get to a CAGR of 10% operating income, and individually year to year having a minimum 10% operating income margin, it seems that whatever they've done, they've ingrained it there, and it's actually outperforming it to a small degree. And even in a what would you say, challenging quarter traditionally, because the September quarter is usually slow for all entertainment and gaming companies. Shifting into the December quarter, where you've got Black Friday sales, and you've got Thanksgiving weekend in US, and you've got transitioning into winter in Europe, and then Christmas coming up and all the rest of that. It's setting itself up to be an absolute cracker of a quarter, because most of their operating income perspective is not reliant on, if there's a massive increase in sales, there's not a massive increase in cost as well. But the inventory jump was curious. I just don't know what they'd be, they haven't got another model on the horizon. And other than stockpiling in the US, I can't see a reason, like there's nothing in the wind of something new coming out. So unless they're stockpiling for Christmas, which doesn't make sense because you'd get the retailers and the wholesalers to do that, they must be holding stuff somewhere in anticipation for this, or had done in anticipation for this tariff issue and its carry on, because it just wouldn't make sense to do it otherwise.
Yeah. I did have a question. How early would you start stocking in? Because I mean, I assume they knew GTA 6 would be delayed, or do you think they were not informed ahead of time? Because they probably want more units for that as well. But I don't know how far ahead they would start, sort of pre-planning for that. I'm ignorant to that. But that maybe.
So they've got to change a whole marketing window, and if the launch was originally meant to be May, then marketing would have started in March.
Yeah.
And if you're going to shift that to be September, October, November lead in, the issue that you've then got is you've got a first party game that should be launching in the first week of October or second week of October. And so then there's potentially competing points there. I imagine that it would have had a fairly big push through the Euro campaign for the football in Europe. So resetting that costs money, but it also costs a lot of time. And reshuffling those points, it wouldn't have been the day before. They would have known probably a month in advance, at least, to start shuffling stuff. But I mean, if you're going to take it from, you're effectively 6 months into the original 12-month extension, and you're sitting there going, we're going to need at least another 6 months. And you're talking to your partners about progress every, there's a stand up every couple of weeks to see how things are tracking. There might, like the original extension from May this year to May next year, the way it was worded suggested there was something in the systems and the build that needed to be redone or changed. And it lined up with the PSSR 2.0, FSR 4, whatever the bloody thing would be, in ingraining machine learning and a heap of other stuff into the systems. Fair enough, you need time to build those out. Now, this time they've said they've pushed it out 6 months to polish the game. The game works, but they want it polished and they want it working day one to its maximum effect. So you can appreciate that they probably took a little bit extra time with the tech developments of building those into the systems. And then just trying to make sure you give yourself every opportunity. But there's very likely that they were consulting with PlayStation and other key partners, and they would have gone, well, if you're going to have it in May and pushing it to November, August is probably not a smart month to release a game. September is going to be banging up against TGS, and there's possibly another game, first party in PlayStation, being released in that window. If you're going to give it 3 months, you might as well give it 6 months, and this is the next major window for a large marketing campaign that's open, or that they could make work. So, which begs the question is, is Wolverine still going to go September, October, or are they potentially going to push that one, or are they going to bring it forward? What are they going to do there? So, because they won't want it. I've maintained this perspective, and I'll pitch the 10 on this hill. There's no way you would want to go 4 weeks before or 6 weeks after GTA 6. whatever you're launching, unless you're an indie or a AA, you don't want to be a AAA sitting in that shadow.
Yeah, I think Wolverine is slightly before, is it? Or because I can't remember.
They're saying fall 26, which would
Okay.
be September to November.
Yeah.
I would have thought they won't release Wolverine before TGS. I would have thought it would be final launch trailer at the State of Play pre-TGS, or that opens TGS. That, like Ghost of Yotei, it's playable at TGS, and then they launch it in the first 2 weeks of October. That would make sense. Tokon Marvel game needs to launch in there somewhere between April and August, September, and then because you've got Soros in March, isn't it? So I would have thought Soros March, Marvel Tokon in May or June, and then Wolverine in October, and then Wolverine goes early October, and then you've got a month effectively clear to then get into the GTA 6 final hype push. It's still probably a little bit close for comfort, but with the cadence of games that release at the moment, to pick a window is damn near impossible. You're going to be banging up against something.
Yeah, true. I want to know where Interstellar slots into all of this. I assume because in this business slide they had, they put it down as a fiscal year 2025. No, not 2025 release. But as far as I understand, that's to the end of March
2026.
Yeah, or was it fiscal year 2026? So it's until March
27.
Yeah, 27. Yeah.
So I would have said March 27 would be because. Sorry, you mean Intergalactic, not Interstellar?
Yeah.
The Naughty Dog game. Yeah. So I would have, the way that they're talking about it, Naughty Dog love to show something 18 months and then go to work and then I'll release it. I would have expected Intergalactic being the next one after Wolverine, and I would have thought March to June 27 would be the window. Because then there's a Venom game and there's 4 other first-party games that are pushing to the back end of development that are going to pop out at some point as well. So,
yeah, okay, well, yeah, we'll see. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, like the rumor was that the PS6 was going to come out in 2027, but based on the recent post financial conference where they said, they view the PS5 as still quite early into the generation or midway or something like that.
The midway point of the generation.
Midway point, yeah. So they could just be referencing cross-gen, but
yeah, it would. But I mean, like if you're 5 years into an 8 or 9 year cycle, then and that's the whole of life cycle. Well, fair enough. You're at the midway point.
Yeah.
But if you're then saying, what are we, 2 years time? So if we're 5 years into a 9 year cycle, and then in 2 years time is when the next one's earliest it's going to show up, that's 7 years into a 9 year cycle, and then you've got an 18-month 2 year crossover. And they would have learnt pretty heavily from the PS4 to PS5 changeover what to and what not to do in terms of getting people to shift. You'll have early adopters, and then you'll have the bulk of it, and then you need something to drive it ongoing. But if November 27 or March 28, PlayStation traditionally goes late. Nintendo's the one that's not afraid to go March or June. But if they go, instead of 27, they go to 28 and push it out to being an 8-year lifespan, then the PS5 will go to 10 years easy in terms of its usability with that crossover. It just really depends what's in a PS6 and what they manage to build in, what drives it. And again, if you're talking about game development and what's coming down the pipeline, the amount of games that would have gone back for rework into their systems because of the machine learning and the AI tech and all that sort of stuff that's come roaring down the pipeline that wasn't there 18 months, 2 years ago when they started building this stuff. I'm actually surprised that we've only had such a small gap in game releases in that would have been affected by that. But yeah, that's,
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, when I heard that, I got to admit, I was just like, oh no, this is like the antithesis of what I personally like. Again, as I explained earlier, that I like, because it makes sense though. Because if the PS6 handheld is like, I think they're already trialing this low power mode in PS5, which is actually just sort of like a mirror for the handheld. to get developers adjusted to making games for the handheld. If you're going to have a handheld that is roughly the performance of your PS5, and that's releasing, a similar window as the PS6, it makes sense that cross-gen would be elongated because, you're already essentially developing for a system that is akin to the performance we have now anyway, so you might as well. But again, that's horrible news for me because I would have wanted games only designed for the PS6 and up. It sounds like I'm not going to get that for another few more years, maybe, maybe
Well,
mid. Yeah.
Well, I suppose it sort of depends on if the machine learning piece underpins, and this will be, extrapolate this conversation into the new Steam stuff. How much of that operating system and how much of that technology is going to be able to leverage the constant updates to AI and machine learning and all that sort of stuff from a software and that basis versus having to produce new hardware? If the PS6 is a genuine leap forward in being able to build off the PS5 and produce hardware that future-proofs itself, then there's no rush to go to the new hardware unless something changes. But I can understand at the moment the hardware outlook with AMD and whatnot, predominantly leveraging off that side of it. The PS5 Pro can access and take advantage of that to a large degree. It won't be until that thing hits a bottleneck or hits a brick wall that they would then be forced to go to the next hardware jump. But if it's all being done off site and off servers and all that continues to push forward, then where's the technological leap forward comes from where? So I can understand why there's no rush to get more hardware out to market if it's going to cost you a bomb to be able to do it and it's marginal improvements. Less is more in some circumstances.
Yeah. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see. There's a lot of changes and a lot of dynamic shifts going on in gaming right now. Obviously, with Xbox, with their hybrid, with PlayStation and their handheld, and now the Steam machine and all this. It's a very interesting time. We're getting quite a diversity of different options and whatever. So it's pretty cool. But we can segue onto the Steam machine if you want, BRAP.
Well, let me ask Logic. I just want to. Did you have any thoughts, Logic, on the Q2 financials?
No.
All right. Let me grab this super chat here.
Short and sweet. No.
Yeah, short and sweet. Gaming Ledger with the $5 Canadian says, I have no idea what Demon Slayer was before the Sony financials. Yeah, Demon Slayer is a very popular anime movie on Netflix that my kids watched a ton this past summer. Literally a ton. And that stupid song's in my head. I don't want to sing it, but if you watch the movie, you know what song I'm talking about. And like all the kids were singing it. And so I don't know, is Sony own that IP or do they just make the movie? I don't remember, but
which one?
Yeah, it's Demon Slayer.
Which one?
K-pop Demon Slayer.
Hang on. K-pop Demon Hunters or Demon Slayer?
Oh, wait, maybe it's Demon. I don't know. He said Demon Slayer.
So Demon Slayer PlayStation Sony has.
I'm probably conflating the two.
Well, the K-pop Demon Hunters, which is the one they sold for $20 million to Netflix plus residuals coming back to them, they own some level of it, but they don't own all of it. Whereas Demon Slayer, and I can never pronounce the rest of the name of it properly, I don't think they own the IP, but they own the distribution rights.
That up. Yeah, I mixed it up. Yep. I mixed it up. Yeah, okay. Gotcha. Okay, that's good to know. All right. Yeah, but I want to go back to the Ghost of Yotei because that's reported of that sold 3.3 million? I got to pull the number back up.
Yeah, in 32 days, so a month roughly. Yeah.
So about a month. Yeah, and Last Arcana, it was like the 18th top selling game in 3 days.
Yeah, correct.
For that month of Circana. So I mean the game is despite what some of these I don't want to call them idiots, but they're idiots.
Grifters.
Yeah, what some of these idiots and grifters are saying, it's actually pretty good. Considering the development budget of the game. I mean, it's profitable now, so I don't know.
I wouldn't say it's pretty good. I would say 3.3 million in a month is really good. I would say it's very strong. Even PlayStation themselves in the financial post conference, they said they consider it a mega hit. And I don't think they're exaggerating. Like, I think for them, it is a mega hit because on a 60 million budget, you're in high profit like within the first month, and it's not going to stop selling. It's going to keep selling. You got Black Friday and holidays around the corner. Like, it's going to continue to do really well, and from now onwards, it's just printing money, right?
Well, they just paid for the next 2 development cycles of games.
Yeah,
like it flopped my ass. Like, come on,
it's so stupid. And they always like apply a different standard to PlayStation. I find them
attachment rates, or there's
Yeah.
this and there's that, and it's come on, just
the irony of it, right? The irony of it is that it's usually from the Xbox side of the aisle, and it's like, hello, like Xbox, like within the last decade, I've only had 4 games that have charted in the annual Circana sales chart, full stop. And since 2016, that's included PC, which has a significantly higher install than PlayStation.
Yeah.
So you're talking about from the aisle of the games that sell significantly worse than PlayStation exclusives, despite launching to a far greater install. And yeah, it's asinine. And the same thing, like, we'll celebrate like Street Fighter sales or Resident Evil sales or Dragon's Dogma sales or whatever. We get these numbers for these games, Metal Gear Solid, this and that, like Mafia and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Like, they're all be impressive, even though they're in line with or in cases less than these other exclusives, which are releasing on one single platform. It's like, hello, like if this is a low attach rate, then what do you call releasing to, 250 million to 2 billion, depending on your, which number you're going by, 2 billion people and selling less? Like, it's just a bizarre thing. Even you could apply it. They're going to say, oh, yeah, but because of Game Pass is cannibalizing sales. All right, well, even Game Pass is like, what, 30 something million subscribers. And then you get some games that have like, Hi-Fi Rush or whatever, or other games like they have like 2 million players or 5 million players, but that's to an install, not including Game Pass, of like hundreds of millions of gamers between PC and Xbox, and then 30 something million Game Pass, where you don't even have to buy the game, you just hit download, right? So why is a game doing 2 to 3 to 5 million players when it has hundreds of million installed to buy and 30 plus million to download? Like, that's a much worse attach ratio. But whatever, like, it's just cope, right? It is what it is.
Yeah. The thing that strikes me as strange with the amount of attention it's getting is this whole, the carry on, not just from Team Green, but the carry on from so many other commentators and influencers that just have no fucking clue, and saying, see, it's a flop because the second one didn't do as good as the first one, or the idiot, what's his name, that decided to have an argument with Colin,
Smash JT.
Fuckwit extraordinaire, who decided to produce a graph that was, here's the factual piece, and then we'll flatline it on a projection. And what's the baseline for his projection?
It's so asinine. Like, he just
pulled it
conjured
out
a
of his
graph.
ass, and then carrying on like it's factual. It's like, at that point,
so he literally just drew a line, and it was much lower than Tsushima, just to say it's not going to sell as much going forward. But like, you just literally pulled that out of your ass. Like, where did you get this from?
And that was a tweet that I put out. I said, at that point, the publisher, and this stands for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, it stands for any of them. At that point, the publisher has made bank. They've made bank. The studio that developed it has made bank. It's not like they've covered their costs. They are putting money in. That's why I say they made bank. They're putting it in the bank for future.
Yeah.
Now, if the publisher's done it and the studio's done it and the platforms that they're on, the people are playing the game and they're enjoying it, who gives a rat's ass about what someone thinks, whether it's a flop or not? Because at that point, the money is talking and no one cares.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Cash is king. No one gives a rat's ass about your opinion of attach rates or anything like that. I could sell a game for $1,000 a unit and sell it to 10 people and make
Yeah.
the same amount of money selling it at $100 a unit to 100 people. It's exactly the same, but guess which one took less work?
Yeah, it's really interesting because like, and I always say like the outrage merchants, and I this isn't like exclusive to right or left. They're actually weirdly the people who are like the snowflakes, shall I say. I find like they're on both aisles of every political sphere, right? Because you have like people, with Hogwarts Legacy, for example, and maybe Stellar Blade, oh, it's over sexualized, or Hogwarts Legacy, you had the controversy with what's her name, J.K. Rowling, and the
Yeah.
transgender stuff, and then obviously with the on the right side, oh, this is what's it, Baby Ink, or Sweet Baby Ink, or something like that, and then
Yeah.
they're trying to force inclusivity and all this other stuff, right? So like both sides are kind of pushing this heavy, no, boycott this, boycott that, and this kind of purity tests of morality and this and that, or so and so developer said this, so we shouldn't support the game made by hundreds of people, as if humans in life don't have such differing opinions and polarizing politics. It's such a weird thing.
Yeah.
But what's interesting to me is because Spider-Man 2 had this whole, it's woke, and they're uglifying Mary Jane, and why do they got this, the character who's deaf and stuff, and that they got a gay couple, and they said they're baby inkifying it or whatever, like boycott this. And Spider-Man 2 is the second best selling game of all time on the PS5, dollar sales wise, the second best. And that's not including hardware bundles. And then Hogwarts Legacy is the only multi-platform single-player game on the list in the top 10. There's 3 PlayStation exclusives and 1 multi-platform single-player game, and that's Hogwarts Legacy. Everything else is sort of multiplayer live service type games. But Hogwarts Legacy is stuck out to me as well because that is another game that had a lot of controversy around it. So now I'm starting to think, do these like grifters end up, as long as the game is good, obviously if the game is not good, then yeah, it's not going to do well. But if the game is good, maybe all this discussion actually increases the exposure to the game and possibly even increases sales, because a lot of these games that come under fire for this sort of stuff are doing actually pretty well, at least some of them, the better ones. So it's quite a funny thing. Like, there's not very successful boycotts going on right now.
It's ridiculous. Anyway, I'll stop. I'll get off my high horse about it because I could go on for days about the stupidity of it.
Yeah. Logic, any thoughts on Ghost of Yotei?
Nothing extensive. I mean, I wrote my point about it today, which is, I see some people trying to diffuse fans being happy that the game sold well. It goes along with an ongoing narrative about, from the camp of the people who are fans of the platform that doesn't report sales data. There's this attempt to deflate and marginalize and be dismissive of sales data that comes out from the other platforms. And the fact of the matter is that there's a very logical, common sense kind of pathology to it. And if you can't understand that, or you ignore it, or you act like it's not a thing, that just tells me that there is an essential synapse like missing in your brain that most other human beings have. And that's, developers make games, people fall in love with those games. When you then have a studio that has existed for over 20 years, and Sucker Punch was formed, I think, in 97. So it's been around for 2+ decades. When you have a studio like that makes many, 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 many games that people love, that they've grown up with, that people have childhoods where they played multiple iterations of games from that studio, where that studio made games that they played in young adulthood, and those people have now gone on and they're raising their own families and they're still playing Sucker Punch games. When you have a studio like that, and the studio produces a game that you also played and enjoyed and loved, and you hear the game has sold well, it is a natural thing for you to be happy that the game has sold well. Because that probably means that studio is going to go on and make another game and continue making the things that you love. These are essential components of the ethos of people who are actually gamers. The people who are not actually gamers, the people who spend their time on Twitter and social media, making up narratives, making news stories out of things that aren't actually news, creating discussions out of things that aren't actually about gaming are the people who have a really difficult time getting their heads wrapped around things like that.
Yeah, I will say as well, like, again, BRAP said no pulling punches. Like, I do think it's a very, like, low IQ thing, because if you look at the aisle of the grifters, every time data comes out, factual data, like Sakana, GSD, and obviously PlayStation themselves, they have to move the goalposts, right? Because the shit they've been saying is not panning out, and they get more and more desperate. And now this new thing is like, oh, I think Grams or Edmond, or fuck knows his name, I don't even know. Like, I don't even follow these guys. They've said they have like an inside source which is giving them like sales numbers. But it's like, you have to be a fucking moron to believe that. There is no inside source that's giving them data that is, either completely off from what PlayStation provides, or that there's no other evidence of. Like, they're having to lean on this fabricated number because that's the only thing that can save their narrative at this point, right? All the hard data, it goes against what they've been saying, right? Obviously, you had Matt Piscatella from Sakana say it's selling in line with Ghost of Yotei, right? And keep in mind, Sakana has unit and revenue sales, so that they actually have both. They just switched to announcing the dollar sales more because it was a shift they did a few years back. You had GSD, which is unit sales, also say it's basically selling the same as Ghost of Tsushima, and keep in mind it's selling the same to a significantly smaller install than Ghost of Tsushima Launch 2, and it's also selling out at a higher price, $10 higher, and it's also selling not in a COVID window. Numerous studios, Ubisoft and others, mentioned that they didn't expect their future titles to have the same sort of performance as a COVID window release, because that was like a heightened time of interest, and obviously everyone's at home and has free time, or is whatever. So all these things stacked against Yotei, and it's still selling in line with Tsushima. So obviously, when you have the hard data or people telling you this thing, and then the sales come out and it's doing 3.3 million in a month. We don't have an exact comparison to Tsushima, but Tsushima did, I don't know, it was 2 point something million in the first few days, and then 5 million in 4 months, I believe it was. But yeah, roughly again in line. They have to instead deviate to this fabricated number. Oh, our inside sources say it did this number on this date. But again, like, that is not in line with the factual data. Sakana and GSD is telling us it's selling the same, and then PlayStation itself is reaffirming that with this figure, and they have to deviate to these fake numbers. But yeah, it's really frustrating, but it is what it is. I'm glad it did as well as it did, and I think it probably will continue to have strong legs. And even from like take the sales out of it, like even from a reception side of things, like obviously I've completed it, I've platinumed the game. I really, really enjoyed it. I would say I loved it. I wasn't one of those who was as high on Tsushima as other people. I found it, even though it had really, really compelling aspects, I found it too repetitive for my liking. And I felt Tsushima was a more cohesive overall experience. It had a little bit more mechanical and side quest diversity. I actually preferred the characters, the story. I know some people prefer Jin. That's fine. It's subjective. But I will say, even from a reception point of view, Ghost of Yotei actually has a higher PSN review average than Ghost of Tsushima. Which correlates with the critic reception. Ghost of Yotei also was better received by critics than Ghost of Tsushima. And I know, again, those grifters, when the reviews came out, they were like, oh, of course they're going to rate it higher. It's a friggin', it's all that baby ink stuff or whatever they call it. That's why critics are faking their adoration for it. But again, the users who bought the game, PSN is user purchase confirmed reviews only, they also have rated the game higher than Ghost of Tsushima. So again, there's correlation with the critics. So, you could say basically Yotei, based on the data that we have, is resonating more with the people who bought and played it than Tsushima did. And I would agree with that. I think it's a better game. So in every way, these guys these faltered, and I kind of just wish, if anyone's listening and you're on that aisle of the thing, don't be a sheep and don't be an outrage snowflake. Like, just think for yourself. Don't let other people make narratives for you or push you to be angry about shit that you don't need to be angry about. Celebrate gaming, celebrate the art, celebrate. And I don't mean diversity in just people. I mean diversity in the stories and the characters that we see represented, because you don't want to play the same shit over and over again. The same looking characters, the same looking, you want to mix things up because it's more interesting, it's more exciting. So me personally, I did like the fact that they went with a female character. Nothing to do with no woke nonsense. It's just I wanted a differentiating take on storytelling or characterization. And that's what I feel I got with Yotei. Atsu as a character, she is different from Jin, and there are even narrative aspects that are positive and conducive to that. You even have like the raiders and the kind of whatever gangs and stuff. They even comment on her appearance. They say like, oh, I hoped for a pretty one, but I guess you'll have to do. Like, it's literally woven into the narrative. And it makes sense with the world as well that she's not some fit, big boobed, because in a world that's full of, bandits and everything else, like, obviously that's not going to be realistic. She couldn't just blend into the background. So anyway, give it a go, because you may prefer it to Tsushima, just like critics and gamers have as well.
All right, let me grab this super chat here from I haven't seen him in a long time. I just lost Mr. Borbor Country, the $5 super chat. Says, I wanted PlayStation to have repercussions for PC ports, but the Steam device is slightly more powerful than a Series S. Maybe next time something will hurt. Thank you for that super chat, Borbor. And and Board, it's interesting. Like, we're going to get to the Steam Machine announcement here, which is a rumor that's been going around for some time. It's Valve officially confirmed the release, or that this thing exists. They flew some influencers out, media types, to Seattle to kind of get a hands-on look at the Steam Machine. You can see it here on the screen. It's very simplistic in design. I like it. It does, kind of reminds me of it's one of the things I like about the Series X, the simplicity of the Series X. You've heard me say it on this show. I don't care for the design of the PlayStation 5. I think it's the ugliest console on the market right now. But yeah, so but it's interesting. I think I want to, kind of on the point what you were saying, Nib, about these narratives. I mean, the Steam Machine release is further fueling the narrative that gaming's more fractured now, meaning putting games everywhere is the way forward. And I'm like, no, like, here we go. Like, understand that differentiators, like exclusives, are going to be a thing, because these platform owners, these platform owners and the ones that make hardware want to say their hardware, want to lock you into their ecosystem. They're going to do that by product differentiation. And I don't know why people are still making that. Oh, I know why they're making that leap of faith. And that is because they're, one particular company who has not had much success recently in the console space is saying this, right? But here we are looking at the Steam Machine, and now this is for those who don't know, this is Steam did partner with OEMs about 10 years ago on a Steam Machine. There were a couple of OEMs making it. I think Alienware was one of them. I think Alienware probably had what I thought was the better or best looking of the Steam Machines, but those didn't pan out well. Steam actually didn't make their own first party Steam Machines. Again, they were all third party OEMs, and they eventually.
I think we ought to differentiate, right? So yeah. I mean, because these are two different product strategies, and go to market, frameworks. So So what they did before were called Steam boxes, and yeah, those didn't take off. So this is Valve's effort at a Steam machine, right, which has all the differentiations of it, right? It's first party. It's not a thing built around partnerships. It's not a thing that is a standalone piece of gear that just stands out on an island by itself and is value propped simply as nothing more than an alternative to a Windows PC. It's an ecosystem. It has other things that go along with it, and it's tightly coupled to the notion of the Steam library, which I think they're even more emphatic about than they were before. There's a lot more support behind these things from Steam. When Steam boxes were available, they were just commodities that were on sale, from the front page, right? The Steam Deck has pages and pages of FAQs and support behind it. Direct support from the vendor to enable you to do things with the Steam Deck that are not out of the box, right? So, direct support that tells you how to put Game Pass on the thing if you want to, or how to put a different operating system on the thing if you want to. So they're just hugely different products. But more specifically, their product names are different. So the Steam boxes were what they tried to do a decade ago, and it's a Steam machine, which is a significantly different device.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Logic. You're right. They were the Steam Decks. Now they are our Steam boxes. I'm sorry, Steam Deck is the handheld. But now to your point, they're the Steam machines. So, Logic, what are your initial thoughts here of the Steam machine? I have some thoughts I'll share later, but what do you think so far from what you've seen, what you've read about the Steam machine?
I'll start at the low end, which is my own personal uptake on it. I love the idea. For my personal gaming ecosystem, this is an option for me that could decrease my dependency on Windows, could decrease the number of PCs that I build and maintain. They are much more kind of analogous to bespoke systems like the Apple devices that I started going down the road with a year ago. And I mentioned earlier today, like I can see a future of my game studio where half Apple devices, half Steam machines. Now I'm trying to sort out certain things, and certain things are kind of wait and see. I'm trying to sort out, well, for my high performance solution, do I still maintain like an Uber box, right? A PC with like a 5080, right, and all the bells and whistles. Or is my high performance option something more like a PlayStation 5 Pro, right? Or a PlayStation 6 Pro? Is that what I lean on to, be the thing that has all the bells and whistles and that plays things at, 4K 120? That's a possibility. So it depends. A lot of it depends on what information comes out of this thing today. There's a ton of information about this thing on launch day. And I think one of the things that we should definitely call out is how different. This is almost like if you've worked business development, if you've worked capture, about this concept of ghosting your competition, right? Which is basically writing things in your ad copy, writing things in your proposal, writing things in your collateral that don't call out your competitor by name, but because you frame them as things that are opposite from what your competitor is doing, it's really clear, what you're calling out and what you're doing. And there's so much ghosting in this from what Xbox propped. And one of the things that's amazing is it's amazing to me how clear the messaging is today and how much information dropped about, there was more information out today about this thing than there was about the Steam Deck when they originally announced it. And there's tons of information that, we're still digging through, but the joysticks are TMR joysticks, which I think is huge on that controller. We have vendors today that still aren't even doing Hall effect, and these guys have gone to TMR. I think one of the biggest things that I've found out today is a big question for me as far as like how this stacks up against an entry level PC. When I say entry level PC, I'm talking about an entry level performant PC, which is like a $1,500 box, right? One of the huge questions to me is, what was the peripheral support going to be like? If this thing is going to be a viable option for somebody coming in with a performant PC, PCs are really, I mean, I get it, I'm using the term performant, but PCs are really less about frames and image quality. Long term, they're about choice and flexibility. And so to really be a viable option for somebody, it's got to support flight control systems. It's got to support controllers, different joysticks. It's got to support wheel and pedals. And somewhere in their ad copy, I can't remember exactly where, there is an indication that it is going to support like all those peripherals that PCs support, which is a bit worrisome because I don't.
You can see it right. You can see it right here. It looks like Logic.
Okay.
Ready for all the peripherals and monitors you can throw. Display port 1.4, 1 gigabyte Ethernet display port, 1.4 HDMI 2.0, one USB-C and 4 USB-A ports.
Yeah. So So I'm gonna wait with bated breath on that. Right. So there's a little bit of a like supporting all the ports is great. Right. Driver support though is going to be the big thing. And in some cases, as we've seen with the DualSense controller, Steam rolled drivers for that themselves. But part of the concerning thing for me about this is just how big is Steam. Like I'm not super interested in Steam, like in Valve, like blowing up by like 500 additional employees, right? To support like a huge go-to-market effort to support this hardware. So I kind of want to see how that pans out. But I mean, for me personally, it's I have 3 gaming PCs that are in my window where I'm starting to worry about and trying to figure out, right, and plan out, what am I upgrading, right? To take those, what are my mid and lower level PCs, up, right, before they get snagged by obsolescence. This gives me a viable option to not have to worry about that. You and I talked earlier today. If this is a $1,000 box, as my Mac Mini is, and some of my Apple devices, those are the type of things where I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't have a problem, spending $1,000, every year, every other year, right, to upgrade or replace a box. That's fine, right, for me, versus spending $1,500 to $2,000, right, on PC upgrades for separate boxes. So I like the concept. I like the idea. I like where this sits. It'll be interesting to see how it turns out.
So Logic, I have to ask you a question. Who asked for this?
Well, it's interesting, and hopefully we'll find out more over time. What data and what telemetry Valve has. One of the things I heard today on Kind of Funny Games Daily is that one of the things Valve mentioned, apparently in some interview that they're doing along with this, is that 20% of their Steam Deck user install base hooks their Steam Deck up to an external monitor. Now the guys on Kind of Funny Games Daily said TV. I don't, as far as I know, I don't believe there's anything from a technical perspective that would send telemetry, right, that would be included in the telemetry data that would go back to Valve that tells them whether or not it's a TV or a monitor. I suspect that a lot of these Steam Decks are in the hands of people who are already PC gamers who have 21, 24, 25, 27 inch monitors, right, just around, that they can hook these things up to. But the point is that there's some user base who is plugging these things into external monitors. I think, and this is speculation on my part, I think they also have visibility on, hey, here's a person who bought a Steam Deck who didn't have a huge Steam library before they bought it. But after they bought the Steam Deck, their library expanded by some X percentage. And right, and what that overlap is with the people who are hooking up to external monitors. So who asked for this is I think people asked for this who have the Steam Deck, who put it up to external monitors, who have significantly grown their libraries. And I think Valve responded to that by saying, hey, we'd like to give these people something more powerful so that they can fulfill that use case that we see people doing, expanding their libraries and playing them on external monitors. And that's who this device is for.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Let me grab some super chats here. Bulbur Country with the $2 super chat says Yotei is a bounty hunting game minus the revenge. Thank you, Bulbur, for the $2 super chat. We have another super chat. JD Gamer with the $5 super chat says, just want to point out that the numbers are the numbers are the numbers. And when official numbers are reported, we should believe them. Same energy and awe. Tell you, these guys.
Numbers are the numbers are the numbers.
I think I'm gonna go ahead and throw out speculation on the. I won't ascribe a label to the pitch, but I assume that this is a pitch that PlayStation sales numbers are somehow some equivalent to Xbox engagement numbers, and we should accept them both equally, and we do not. So just to make it clear, that thesis is refuted. Just to be very clear about it, and I have no problem speaking for all 4 current members of the panel because I'm pretty sure we are all in agreement on that topic.
I think we are too. Yeah, like I know some people like to throw the weight around of certain Mao, and it's like, well, it's Mao's a nice lipstick. Now Mao is lipstick on the pig. Sorry, Falky. Mao is lipstick on the pig. That's not the number that you want to measure, but
No,
it's
not
just
if you want to actually get some, something that you can work with in terms of data.
Now, and before the tattletales run away from this podcast and go tell all the Xbox content creators and influencers what Game Logic said, because apparently that's a weekly romper room game that's getting played out there in social media.
You're on the Discord list, aren't you?
Yeah. I did not say that the engagement numbers that Xbox reports are irrelevant. What I said is that they're not equivalent, that there's a difference between scope and scale, which is another thing that certain fans in certain brand aligned camps tend to want to be dismissive of, but we don't do that here. We're not going to do it today.
No, not at all. Yeah. And I will say this about the Steam Machine reveal. What I did like about it though, Logic, there was a lot of media around it. Going to the webpage here, it's very clean, clear and concise. The messaging, what this thing does.
It's a PC BRAP. And they said that multiple times.
I mean,
I love the ghosting. I love ghosting. I love the messaging that says that Xbox ad campaign was poppycock, right? And you could tell because we're doing the opposite thing of it.
Well, that's kind of my point too. Like, it was very clear, concise. There's no ambiguity here, right? This thing is a PC. They gave you the specs. Also, I like that they have the customized faceplates here. So they showed that. Got to have the LED strip, right? Shout out to RGB PC. It runs Steam OS, right? They talked about, keeping the power flexibility of a PC. Well, there you go. And it's a PC. so there's no ambiguity here. Is this thing a console? Is it? No, it's a PC.
Yeah.
That was very clear. And then
reading this title from PC Gamer, Valve just quietly redefined what PC gaming can be, all while an increasingly delusional Microsoft desperately tries to tell everyone their PC is an Xbox.
Right. And I do want to interject at this point because I do want to tamp these flames down as well, right? I also think what Steam is saying, and this is the same thing that I said about the Steam Deck, because when the Steam Deck launched, there were a bunch of yokels who ran around saying, oh, this thing is going to destroy the Nintendo Switch. Valve is very clearly saying, in my opinion, it's very clearly saying this thing is not a console. And I also don't believe, and I'm going to get some heat, but I'm going to be very, very aggressive about this topic. We should not be talking about this thing as it compares to consoles. It's not a console competitor. It is a PC. So PlayStation fans don't have anything to be concerned about this box. PlayStation has targeted the high-end, luxury-end, high-performance, ecosystem desiring end of the market. There's an ecosystem play here too, but this is still, in my opinion, largely a device that is one that graduates you to PC gaming, right? So if you come in on Steam Deck, you can now step up to Steam Machine. And from there, if you want to continue evolving into the hobby, then you can go full-blown DIY PC or pre-built, whatever. This is not something that detracts from PlayStation's territory or is coming at PlayStation. And all the console warriors that are already out there starting the foolishness, in my opinion, we don't need to follow up on them. Like
Yeah.
first of all,
Disagree.
they're all severely uneducated from a technical perspective on PC gaming.
Yeah.
So a lot of the comparisons they're coming up with are just as kind of knuckleheaded and ridiculous as the ones the Xbox fans come up with.
I will
I
say.
need to jump in. Sorry,
Okay.
I got to head off. If
Oh,
you're still
that.
here,
Okay.
if you're still here in 30 minutes ish, I'll be back. If you're not, have a lovely time. And I still think this thing's going to cost over $1,000.
No way! Come on,
Sorry,
no
Falky.
way, Folky.
I've heard rumors entry level PCs what this will cost.
Well,
Seriously, with the performance specs it has, I don't know. Okay.
I do have some concerns about performance specs, but
Yeah, so this is the thing. Like, anyway,
all right, Falky, thank you.
all right, see you later, David. This is the thing. Okay, let me just like my take on what they announced. Right, I think the controller looks superb. Like, it looks like such a high quality device. Magnetic analog and the touch tracking pads. Just the build of it looks really good. And they talked about high, 35-hour battery life and everything. All of that. It looks like a premium, controller. But I do wish it had haptics and adaptive triggers and that kind of thing, because I feel like I've kind of grown accustomed to that. And even the Switch 2 has haptics and stuff, so I don't really want to. I don't know even if it has rumble, but I don't really want to go back to just standard rumble. I really do want the more advanced stuff on that end. But it does look like a fantastic controller. Even their VR headset I think looks really cool, like such a slick design. It just looks like a more compact and streamlined, kind of like the Apple VR thing or augment or whatever. It looks like a better version of that. Really cool from a hardware design perspective. I also think the Steam machine looks cool. Like you said, it's got that industrial vibe, series similar to the Series X, but I would say actually looks better than the Series X. Not just because the kind of the sizing is just a little bit more elegant, but it also just has a tiny little bit of detail that just sets off, with the little bar at the bottom. And I just think it's a more cohesive box. Looks really cool, and I would like it would look cool in my system. The only thing is, when they announced it, I was like, oh great, I actually might even pick this up. But then when I heard about the specs, and it's like 28 CUs, RDNA 3, which is not that high. I know it's RDNA 3 and the current consoles are RDNA 2, so there is obviously, you're getting more performance per watt and CU or whatever. But yeah, I think the PS5 is 36 CUs and the Series X is like 50 something, maybe 52. And then on top of that, 8 gigabytes of VRAM. I don't know. Like, to me, that was quite a bit of a shock. I was like, really? They're just going with 8 gigabytes for this thing? And then a GPU that is kind of in line or, potentially even trailing. I think Digital Foundry said it's slightly trailing the current gen consoles. That was a bit of a surprise to me. I was expecting it to be more performant, and I was excited for it to be more performant. Like, if it was a bit higher end than that, maybe like in PS5 Pro territory or even better, I would have like jumped on it, I think. Because yeah, I absolutely would want a gateway PC for big screen, gaming and all the rest of it. But if it's just kind of like giving me PS5-ish performance in 2026, that for me is not sufficient, at least for me personally, especially if a year or two later we're going to have the next gen consoles that, from what the rumors suggest, is going to be a substantial leap. So it's a bit of a weird one. Like, I love the idea of it, I love the design, I love the ethos, and I really would like a Valve box that I can just stick in my entertainment unit. Like, that's actually what I want. I don't game on PC anymore because I just don't even like going to my bloody PC desk and booting it up. I just find the whole experience slightly cumbersome. Obviously, my hardware is ancient now anyway, so I'm making excuses. But I don't even feel compelled to upgrade it. It's just not really. I don't like sitting at my computer chair and all of that. And I know what people. Oh, you just bring it to your living room. I don't want a fucking massive PC tower that looks like Darth Vader's bloody spaceship sitting next
Yeah.
to my
But
slick
why not, Nib? Why
entertainment
not?
unit. Like that's not what
Yeah,
I want. Like
Nib, once you find, look, you throw RBGs on the back of your TV, right?
you know,
That's what I
like
have.
neon fucking lights and shit. Like I'm having
No,
a disco.
I have RBGs on my. I have a 65-inch OLED. I have
Yeah.
RGBs that are on the back, right? And if you put a computer next, it looks nice. Looks nice and clean.
Nah, man. I don't even like the design of the PS5. I hate the design. Like
I don't
it looks
like
too
it.
gamey, like Alienware designed it. I like my shit to look slick. Like I want people to come in and be like, "Oh, this is
You like
a
that
very
industrial form factor, like you mentioned earlier.
yeah."
Dude.
So like,
Yeah,
and I don't want
get
my
that.
tower in here. I don't want this
Simplicity.
big thing that my kid could knock into. I want it like everything neat and tidy. So this Steam box, kind of like Steam machine, sorry. It speaks to that. Like that's kind of what I wanted, but I'm not sold on the performance and the 8 GB of VRAM. I mean, I don't know what the cost is going to be. That's why I can't see this being $1,000. Like, not with that performance. How are you going to bring something that's kind of comparable to PlayStation 5 and current gen consoles in performance, but charge like more than double the price? To me, that would be a huge misstep. And it sounds like they've designed this with affordability in mind. So, and obviously, Game Logic was saying it's kind of like a gateway into PC gaming, and that would make sense as well. Like if you start, you just want something easy, affordable, pick up and play, gives you like an insight into what you could have, and then if you want, you can build a rig and or maybe Valve themselves release something a bit more premium down the line. I would love that. I would 100% buy it.
I almost think, Nib, I think one of the like you, I mean, so I was excited to hear the announcement of the Steam machine. I'm intrigued. It looks very interesting. I love the design. But to your point, the technical specifications here, a little bit of a head scratcher for me. And then then it comes down to, well, based on these technical specs, and I was listening to I forget what influencer I was listening to that said that Steam had told them that this thing will probably come in at a price point of an entry level PC. I'm like, well, that's that could be up to $1,000, maybe more.
I was thinking 800 or something like that. That to me is like entry price.
Yeah, I just think the only thing that's a head scratcher for me that I'm concerned about is that this thing does look a little bit low end.
Yeah.
I know Slomo had posted something on Twitter about it having 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Is this thing going to be able to play like modern game titles? Is this game, and if you look at like what I would say is the PC gamer, the core PC gamer, right? Like I would imagine probably want something that's a bit more performant. But then I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is someone who's already inside the Steam ecosystem. Maybe has a Steam Deck. I think to Logic's point about that 20% of Steam Deck users are hooking up their Steam Deck to a monitor. Maybe this is for those. I would imagine this is for those people, kind of expanding the offering, the hardware offering inside in the Steam ecosystem. Keep people locked in, keep people engaged, get them new hardware, maybe get some new people into the Steam ecosystem that are maybe kind of dipping their toes in the PC pool, but maybe not. Maybe this device allows them not to, or gives them the opportunity to not really make that huge maybe financial commitment of building a PC rig, or maybe someone like you, Deb, who wants to get back into PC but doesn't want a desktop sitting next to his TV.
The thing is, I do want that. You're absolutely right, but not at this performance level. Then I might as well just go with the console, like because. Yes, I understand it's Linux and Steam is actually inefficient compared to like Windows. But in terms of the optimization and convenience aspect, it's still not going to supersede a console. So why would I get like a low end PC? Like what I do want exactly that from PC, but like I said, I want it in a more performant package, so I can just up those bells and whistles on the games that might benefit from it. Like say path tracing on a Cyberpunk or something, or something like that. Like if it could get closer to that sort of level of performance, then I absolutely would. Obviously, then we get into like TDP being different, cooling, but maybe they can't do that in such a probably they can't do that in such a small form factor. That's the point. This is quite dainty. Maybe it's just a limitation of physics, etc. But that's kind of what I would prefer.
Well, it's not just a limitation, right? I mean, I think we need to look at some of the other lessons around the industry, right? And look at the things that Amazon has said. The things you're talking about are problems that there are already solutions for. So why would Steam build a box to replicate things that there are already solutions for? And going back to BRAP's comment, right? And then when you put that out on the market, then the attempt you're going to make is trying to pull consumers off of platforms that they're already on. So one thing, BRAP, I was going to ask, can you, since one of JD Gamer's comments was that the messaging was not clear, that they don't tell people that it's a Linux PC.
Oh, JD gave me the $2 super chat. Not clear. They fail to tell people it's a Linux PC.
Yeah, can you please scroll to the bottom of the Steam hardware page where it literally has in full size page view, "We are made for Steam and Steam OS."
Where's that at?
Yeah, Steam OS. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're on the store.steampower.com, which is the Steam hardware main page, at the bottom it clearly says that it's Steam and Steam OS.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Steam OS. Yeah. Okay. It runs on Steam OS. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought Steam OS was Linux based. My bad.
It is.
It is. Okay. Yeah.
It is Linux based, but I think. I don't agree with JD's commentary, by the way, because
I think his point is that it's not a Windows PC. But,
yeah, correct. Yeah.
I mean, Macs. People call Macs PCs, but Macs obviously don't run
on. Let me ask you, Game Logic, because you are obviously in the PC sphere. I want like a really slick console-like experience, but with Steam games. So my PC library. What do I buy? I want high-end performance. I don't care so much about the money. What is the device?
Xbox hybrid.
Yeah,
but then I'm paying a high markup, right?
I mean, there's so this is going to sound contrary to what I said. So there isn't a solution for that.
Okay.
But then to have that discussion, I think we go back, right? So the thing that's interesting that's happening now is it's very funny that in recent history, people are referring to Steam as a platform. Steam, from a technical perspective, Steam is not a platform, right? Not really, not until now, and the Steam Deck has kind of invoked that conversation, right?
Yeah.
Steam is a digital storefront. It's a DRM implementation, right? It's not a platform. It doesn't. I mean, maybe there's a philosophical argument. Go ahead.
I want to ask you a question. Before I forget, do you think it's a platform now with the introduction of the Steam machine coupled with the Steam Deck?
Well, yeah, that's when it's going to start to become a platform, right? And that's the real kind of inception of it. So the question then becomes, where does it go from there? I mean, what Steam is fulfilling now is they deployed the Steam Deck because they thought there was an interest for it, which I think is valid. From that telemetry and that data, they've determined that there's another use case that people want to have filled, and so they're fulfilling that gap. If from this data, because remember, Steam's not, Steam, it's not Steam, it's Valve. Valve is a small company, and they're not a company that's wired around, they're not a hardware company. They're not an entertainment company. They are literally a digital storefront. They are literally a retailer. They're like Best Buy, right? And GameStop. Yes, they have a small development studio and they have done stuff in the past, but they haven't developed anything really big for a very, very, very long time. So they're much more so I'd think of them almost as the opposite of CD Projekt Red, right? Where big CD Projekt Red and a small piece of what they do is GOG. Valve is the opposite of that. The big part that Valve does is Steam, and they have a little tiny teeny development. So I would say out of this, then if they get data and telemetry that tells them that people want to fulfill the use case that you're talking about, Nib, then maybe they'll fulfill that. But right now, I don't believe that what they learned from the Steam box is that people didn't want that fulfilled. Right? I mean, that's what the market said. So right now the market solves that problem by the pre-built DIY crowd. Right? Maybe some laptops like Nate mentioned. in other things. So I don't think that they have the risk appetite to put themselves out there to try and fulfill that without firm indication that people want that fulfilled. The things that you were mentioning before, I mean, I understand that you have a desire for them. I think my perspective is that that's I don't know that that's what the larger market wants, and so that's not what that.
Oh yeah. I think I am a niche. Don't get me wrong. Like clearly, I am a niche. BRAP was saying get the Xbox hybrid. The reason I don't think that necessarily fulfills it, unless they do a bang up job that they haven't managed in years, is I feel like it's still going to have that like Windows bloat and all the issues. Like if it really is just a console like experience. Keep in mind, I do think even the Xbox Series OS is quite cumbersome, especially if you're doing like media stuff and things like that, recording and trying to edit and use the DVR and all of that. It's a pain in the ass. But obviously, if it is closer to the console thing, then it will kind of tick some of those boxes. But from all intents and purposes, what I've heard from people who own it, the what do you call it, the ROG X Ally or whatever, it is not that. It still has all the Windows isms and all the issues and all the blow and the hours of updates and all this other stuff in the background and a lot of tinkering. It still has all of that, and that is not what I want. I know it sounds weird because people will just say, well, just get a console. Well, that is why I'm on console. But I would like my Steam library to be able to play my Steam library in a more console-like fashion without all that fluff and everything, but at a higher level. That is appealing to me. So if at one point that niche is fulfilled, that would be amazing for me.
So when you go back a little bit earlier, where you're talking about, I want a high-end box that plays my Steam games, that consolifies the PC gaming experience. What I was going to say, and I'm not trying to be flippant, what I was going to say is, go then tie that back to BRAP's question of like, who is this for? This is not for you, right? This is not for that use case. This is not for that scenario. Now, a value prop and an alternative that it does provide is the thing that you then just mentioned, right, just a few minutes ago, which is, the target demo that or use case that Xbox is going after. And what I will say is what this thing offers is a value prop alternative, which is that there are more and more people on a daily basis who don't want Windows. And so the conversation that I had earlier today with BRAP was that you're coming to pitch me this Xbox Magnus thing, and you're telling me that, hey, the value prop is that, but I'm going to give you access to Steam, right, and Epic and GOG, and all you have to do to get that, and I'm also going to give you Windows with it, right? And my response to that is, okay, but I don't want Windows. Like Windows is not helping me right now. Windows is not making me love gaming. It is something that I tolerate, that I have to deal with. That is the default because that's the way things are. But goddamn, if I had an option to not have to deal with it, I would. But this is the alternative, one of the alternatives, right, that this thing will provide. It's going to provide people access to their Steam library, as you mentioned, decoupled and unbuckled from all of the, quite frankly, like what is more, and I'm going to be very aggressive and blunt, what is more and more on a daily basis, the bullshit that Windows 11 is giving you. Because you're going to get a Steam machine and it's not going to stuff on the sly, right, icons in your start menu for applications that aren't actually installed, but are essentially advertisements of things that you can go buy from the bunk-ass Windows store, right, that you're not interested in. It's not going to tell you, it's not going to throw an interrupt on your screen, right, even when you're in full screen mode, that you've got to run a Windows quick security scan, right, from Windows Defender because you haven't done it in a while, right? It's not going to do this. It's not going to, if when it forces you to sign into your Steam account, it's going to do that. But when it does that, it's not going to install Microsoft Teams and then start auto syncing with OneDrive, right? It's not going to constantly nag you and tell you what browser you need to use. It's not going to constantly nag you and tell you should enable BitLocker. It's not going to constantly nag you and tell you that you should set up OneDrive as a backup. It's not going to constantly, right? That's not what Steam's to do. And they have it all over their page. Why would we tell you what you can do with the hardware you've bought? Right? So that's the option that it's going to provide. I think that's, again, for the people who want that type of experience. From a performance perspective, I see lots of things about performance. Yes, your guys' concerns, I think, are at least valid from an initiating point, and from a, hey, I need to ask a question about that. What I would say, and I will allow myself to be guilty of bias here. When you look at the Steam Deck, the commentary that I often have about the Steam Deck is that it's not like those machines never existed before. There were Windows-based handheld PCs that were targeted for gamers before. They cost more than twice as much as the Steam Deck did, as the high-end Steam Deck did when it came to market. And they were always compromised boxes. They were compromised from both a performance and a compatibility standpoint. You would go to play a game and the game wouldn't run. You would go to play a game and the game would be a slideshow. Valve solved that problem by themselves and got the price point down below $500. They didn't solve it by going to Microsoft and getting support from the ATG and asking them, please help us make this thing work. They didn't solve it, but quite frankly, by going to developers en masse, right, initially, and saying, hey, please include this, I don't know, plugin or package or whatever with your game, and put in your own LOE to make it work on our hardware. They largely solved the problem by themselves. And so when they say 4K 60 and then you see the specs, what I'm going to choose to believe right now, until disproven, is that I believe that they're going to make that work, somehow. I don't know exactly how, but I'm willing to wait to see and not discount it, because shit didn't work on a thing like the Steam Deck for years, for a decade or more, before the Steam Deck came to market. And then the Steam Deck comes to market, and it works out of the box without futzing with it. Hundreds of games, thousands of games run on that thing. And it's not because developers have, done a year's worth of additional development time to make it work on a separate hardware SKU, or because there's a Steam Deck SDK out there that everybody has to make themselves compatible with, or because Microsoft went and did something with DirectX and made it run. And the sucky thing for Xbox, quite frankly, and Microsoft, is that, and we have data and benchmarks that show games running better on the Steam Deck than they do natively on Windows on their own handhelds. So I think there's reason to hold out hope. I think what everyone needs to determine is, where does this fit within your gaming ecosystem, and is there that space? If there's not the space, then just, I'm not trying to be a smartass, just move on, because the device isn't for you. It doesn't. If you don't have a space in your ecosystem for it, then you don't. And I'm saying Valve's not trying to find a space in your living room, right? If you don't need it or you don't want it. They're also not running around trying to tell you how you should game, or that you need this device, or that they know better than you do how you want to game, right? It has a value prop, and I think it is what it is. From a cost perspective, I may have guessed high too. I've been saying $1,000 to $1,099. What I've been saying is that what they don't want to do is they don't want to get too close to that $1,500 price point, where somebody will say, hey, if I just save for another payday or two, a few more $100, then I could buy a $1,500 performant entry-level gaming PC. I'll have a GPU with 16 gigabytes of VRAM, and I'll probably be able to buy additional storage as well beyond the 2 terabytes of the upper SKU unit. I think that's where they want to kind of not get too close to and start making people ask those questions. My own $1,000 or $1,099 might be high. I think one thing I would start looking at is look at where Apple prices the Mac Mini, right? Where the entry level is at $599, mid tiers at $799, and top tiers at $999. And then say, well, they're definitely going to be probably the entry level of this thing will be at best the same amount as the high level Steam Deck SKU of $650. And then the 2 terabyte SKU will probably be a little higher than that. So, it could be anything from a range of, $650 to $1099, depending on the SKU.
Yeah, let me grab some super chats here, gentlemen. One sec here. I want to make sure I didn't miss one. Okay. Gaming Ledger with the $5 Canadian says, selfishly, I'm hoping it sparks interest in Linux native development. The open source community is a big reason for Proton's current success. Thank you for that super chat. Big shout out to B Money says, got to remember most PC players aren't playing the most graphically intense games. The games will struggle, but a game like Peak or Ball Pit doesn't need high end specs. Thank you for that. Great seeing you, by the way, B Money. Got to get you, man. You got to join the show, man. It's been a while since we've had you on. The Gaming Ledger with another $5 Canadian super chat says, Gabe went with Linux to hedge Microsoft originally. Windows 8 tried to wall garden apps. Another instance of a competitor Microsoft created. Thank you for that super chat again, Game Ledger. Let's see. Yeah, no, those are, I think those are great points, Logic. But to your earlier point, I am seeing people with this thing could this thing is a threat to PlayStation. PlayStation better watch out. I'm like, guys, for the reasons you just mentioned, Logic, they're clearly targeting there are two different types of consumers here. You just kind of walked Nib through his use case. Everyone has a different use case, but I don't think that I would say the PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch are more mass market devices. I don't think this is a mass market device. I think it's for
so that was my next question. Yeah. What do you gentlemen what do you see this selling? Because I don't think it's going to be this. Yeah, I think it's.
I mean, I don't think it's a mass market device, but I think it's a thing, right? It's a thing that meets a need for a certain segment of gaming. I always say this on the show, like it's funny. Like,
let me ask you this: do you think it will outsell the Xbox hybrid, whatever the next console?
I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. I mean, maybe not. I say maybe not only because of I think you do have a consumer base, a consumer in Xbox, the Xbox ecosystem that is naturally going to follow Xbox wherever it goes, right? I mean, you see it now. I mean, they're parroting, this is an Xbox. They have gone along with the diluting of the Xbox brand. They're okay with that. So they're gonna anything that Microsoft's slaps an Xbox sticker on and says this is an Xbox, they're gonna go there and buy it, right? And so I think in that regard, maybe because of that, the like an Xbox hybrid PC might sell well, but you never know. I mean, maybe this thing is cheaper and it's a cheaper entry point to that hybrid PC gaming space. Maybe it sells more. I don't know, but I don't know if in my opinion, I think probably not Series X, but again, Xbox hybrid only because of the existing install base that the Xbox has right now, and people migrating over, following to go on that device.
Yeah, I mean, I think it outsells it. I mean, I say that simply based on math, because at two different points when I was considering those that question like completely separately, like not related to each other, where I landed was I think the Xbox hybrid thing is going to sell in these single digit millions of units, so 5 to 9 million. When I thought about this thing, I think it's going to sell 10 to 15 million. And if you think about it from Valve's perspective, if you sell 10 million of these things, 15 million of these things, you add it to the 5 million Steam decks. And from here, they put out the Steam machine. It's also interesting that they, showed it being used like by a developer. For I don't know, maybe he was doing 3D modeling or maybe he was an AutoCAD. I wasn't sure. So maybe it was a developer or an engineer. But again, you look at, where things like the Mac Mini and the Mac Studio are good fills for use cases for people. And so when you think about like all the different people that this could be sold to, including people who are just looking for, again, like don't want Windows, but maybe for some reason, maybe don't want Mac either. If you sell 10 million of these things plus the 5 million Steam decks, what probably comes after this thing comes out in 2026, 2027, I'm guessing you probably get an upgraded Steam Deck. right? And the ball starts rolling from there, and you're at 20 million. You probably have a decent ramp, right, to grab more market share. Now maybe you add additional SKUs. Maybe you do add a SKU that fulfills the thing you're looking for, Nib. And then you become a viable competitor in the space, based on the room and the gap that Xbox has left.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing. Like we've spoken a lot about exclusivity and the fact that PlayStation, because they make the vast majority of their money from the 30% cut on microtransaction, game sales, etc., that they need differentiators to push their platform, right? But I do wonder, in a world where like Xbox, which traditionally has been their primary high performance competitor, in a world where even Xbox is sort of gravitating towards PC and they don't really have a console high performance competitor, is there a time or whatever where they could just do day PC, because that void, that heat that they had is no longer there, and it's just like PC and console. And if you're a console gamer, you're naturally guaranteed to PC. And then if maybe things could change in future, I don't know, but obviously right now, because they need to push this ecosystem, hence they still have the staggered releases and everything else. In fact, as I've said before, and I've tweeted and I've shared videos, multiple different PlayStation execs have actually spoken about how their PC staggered release date strategy is kind of like to use my own terminology, a Trojan horse, right? That they find that PC gamers who no longer want to wait for PlayStation games, just end up buying a PS5. And maybe that is the case based on some of the data that we have. But it is curious. Like the other question I had for you, we're talking about Steambox, we're talking about Xbox, we're talking about, do you ever envisage a time where PlayStation could just go day on the whole slate on PC?
I mean, I hope not. I mean, I think you and I have either we've discussed this before, or we're just of similar mind. And my perspective comes from working in this in the software development space. If I walk into a room of 500 software developers and I ask them, hey, you can sign up for whatever project you want. One project is they're both 5-year projects. In one, you're going to code to deploy your application on one hardware platform. On another project, you're going to code to deploy on 3. I wouldn't be able to swing a cat and not hit a developer who wanted to work on the project targeting one piece of hardware. I think that works. I think that I like that as a consumer, because it gets me, I feel like I'm going to be repeating things you've said. It gets me hardware that is tailored and custom to rend the greatest capability out of that singular hardware target to code as close to the metal as possible, and give it the best opportunity for that game and that team to render something immaculate. And I'm not saying it's impossible to do so when you're coding for 3 platforms. It's just less likely. So I'm fine with the staggered release approach right now. Again, I say that as a person who owns multiple boxes. I get that there are consumers who only want to own one box, so that sucks for them. But I'm not here to champion everybody's desires and use cases. I'm here to champion mine. So I mean, unless market conditions slide down the hill to the point where they are forced to, I don't think what I believe from the voice tracking and things I've heard now is I believe the creatives in those studios want to do what they're doing now.
What they're doing now,
to hyper focus on the one PlayStation hardware, and then after that is done, or when it's 97% complete, hand it off to Nixus or Bluepoint or Velocity or whatever, and let them go do the port.
So it's a really interesting thing, because like obviously all of this boils down to, it's like the equilibrium or the balance of whether additional sales of first party content on PC supersede the risk of cannibalization of your PlayStation ecosystem, right? Because you could say that by Xbox putting everything on PC day, they have in a sense capitulated their console market share. And we have seen a shift of even even anecdotally in the community, a lot of people have kind of shifted to PC. They don't no longer feel that they need an Xbox, right? I can get Game Pass on PC. In fact, it's cheaper and better. Like sometimes you even get PC timed exclusives with like, some of the strategy games and what's that Gears Tactics game, and then you had Flight Sim and stuff like that. On occasion, Azu or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, now and again, you even get games that are on PC Game Pass, but that aren't on console, which is really ironic. And then obviously it's a much cheaper cost as well. So they gave people incentives in a way to ditch Xbox and go to PC instead. And the fear is, and again, PlayStation executives have mentioned it. They literally said, we do not want cannibalization with the PC market. We want additional sales and to draw people over to the PlayStation system. But again, with Xbox going away, I wonder if that whole discussion is going to be revisited because they don't have as much threat, or the polar opposite, with Steam now having this Steam machine and presumably evolving and adapting it over the time. Maybe they do have they have to, I'm not saying it's like a threat, but maybe they just do have to be cognizant of that, because if Steam keep evolving this, maybe if PlayStation did do day on everything PC, it would actually draw more people to devices like the Steam machine. So it's a really interesting thing, and I really can't wait to see how things like develop over time. But from what I'm seeing, based on like the sales of PC games on Steam at the moment, of PlayStation games on Steam, there seems to be like a trajectory towards fewer and fewer sales over time. Like Spider-Man 2, God of War Ragnarok, a lot of the newer releases, Horizon Forbidden West, they've actually done significantly. Obviously, we don't know the sales numbers, but they've done significantly fewer peak concurrent players than their predecessors did. Whereas on the PlayStation side, they have sold better than their predecessors, with the exception of Horizon Forbidden West, which kind of sold roughly in line with it. So it is an interesting thing. Like God of War Ragnarok, I think, sold 4 times faster on PS5 than timeline than God of War 2018 did. Spider-Man 2 sold, I think, if I remember correctly, it was 11 million. I won't say it, but it looks to be tracking quicker as well. And obviously now it's the second best-selling game of all time on PS5. But they're selling less on the PC side of things. And is that because PC gamers are less interested in the PlayStation titles, or is it because more and more PlayStation PC gamers are buying a PS5 as a secondary box, and PlayStation strategy is working? So the reason I bring all that up is the less sales on the PC side of things actually more of a reason that they might deprioritize PC as a platform? It will just be interesting to see going forward, especially when Spider-Man 2 had a much shorter window than previous titles and still sold a lot less. It did make a significant difference. But anyway, yeah, I just thought it's interesting.
Yeah,
What do you reckon, Brad? Do you reckon they ever go day?
I think not right now. No, I think that, there have to be a business case for them to do that, and in my mind, that would be that they're having problems selling software.
Yeah,
and that's just not the case today. That's not that's not the business model. That's not the business reality, I should say. Now, who knows? Like Mooch likes to say, you never say never. But I don't see that changing. I think that they are still. It's interesting. You looked at the state of play that they had, and they introduced the PlayStation monitor with the DualSense charger built in, and then I think the prior state of play, they introduced the PlayStation speakers for the PC, or the speakers that you can hook your PlayStation Portal to. And so when I see those investments, I look at that as just Sony doubling down on the PlayStation ecosystem. And part of that doubling down is going to include things like exclusives. Like they want to keep people inside those ecosystems. And this is why I find the whole argument of exclusivity stupid, because it's like, well, if everything's the same, then
Yeah,
And there's really like then what's the product differentiation? Like, and like
exactly.
logic, like logic, like you said, at that point, then it becomes price, and then it becomes a race to the bottom, right? Like we
Yeah.
see in mobile.
Pork bellies.
Because exactly, because pork bellies, and look,
Yeah.
I don't want gaming to become pork bellies. I don't want that. And this is the thing that drives me crazy, that people are arguing against their own self-interest as gamers. You don't want a pork belly economy in gaming. It's going to get you games that look like mobile games, these gotcha games, these games that are heavily reliant on microtransactions. Like you don't want that. I promise you don't want that. And you got people arguing that for that future, and not think, and all because they want to prove that a particular platform has the right business model going forward without even, and maybe they do understand. Maybe they're just being purposely obtuse here, but without realizing that the reason Xbox is pivoting is because they had problems selling hardware. When you can't sell hardware, you can't sell software.
Yeah.
And they had problems selling software. So my point is this: I don't think. Again, who knows? Maybe the future is maybe 10, 15, 20 years from now things change, but I don't see them going day and date on PC. I think they at least want to hold on to the idea that at the very least, yeah, you can get God of War on PC, but you're going to have to wait, right? But you can't get it first here, right? So I've said this on Twitter, like the difference between PlayStation's publishing philosophy and Xbox is that PlayStation is platform first, Microsoft is platform agnostic. Those are two different things.
And to be fair, like we're seeing that really clearly signaled in the marketing. Xbox's marketing at the moment is like everything is an Xbox. This is an Xbox. This is an Xbox. To be an Xboxer, like it's almost like they're, with the terminology of the marketing, it's very specific, right? It's almost like they're relegating Xbox as it was before as a key console ecosystem, as a kind of a fragment of the past, an Xboxer.
It's
now, and then PlayStation
it's a devaluing of the brand. I mean, it's a
devaluing of the brand, yeah. And then PlayStation, you look at their two recent adverts, right? The two recent spots. Yeah. Both of them are only on PlayStation. This is for PlayStation. This is only with the PS5. Like, it's all about, like, listen, you want these experiences, you got to get a PS5. It's like the polar opposite. So it's an interesting thing seeing it unfold like that. But like you said, yeah, like, again, the data is the data. Like, look at this top 10 all-time sales, Sakana sales of PlayStation. 3 of the games are PS5 exclusives, right? Single player games, and only one other single player game is on the list, Hogwarts. 30% of the list being PlayStation exclusives. PlayStation first party exclusives make up less than 2% of the total library. And they're 30% of this top 10 list. And I'm sure if you did a top 20 list, they would have an overrepresentation in the top 20 and in the top 30, etc. Clearly, people are, also they're buying the system for the multi-platform games, but clearly the exclusives are a primary differentiator, right? And I would love to see Xbox's top 10 or top 20 all-time sales list, because I have a feeling it might be absent of as many exclusives, but who knows? It would have been fascinating to see. It's a shame he never posts the Xbox equivalent of these things. Multiple times now he's posted all-time selling lists for Nintendo and PlayStation, but he hasn't done for Xbox, and that's a real shame. Maybe he knows it would start a bit of a a storm, but I would love to see that data.
Yeah, I think I think the interesting thing with because I was thinking about this, with the announcement of the Steam machine and what it potentially means for a PC hybrid Xbox. I think if Microsoft is marketing this PC hybrid Xbox, and we know that now, I think one of the potential challenges is this library, this overlap of libraries or features, right? Where what's the difference between the PC, the Xbox hybrid PC versus the Steam machine, right? Because you can pretty much access different storefronts, things like that, right? But if I'm Microsoft, that I'm pushing Game Pass, I'm pushing those differentiators. I said this to you earlier, Logic. everything's an Xbox. Like that's a differentiator of the ecosystem for Xbox. And I think that is probably, I would imagine, something that they probably would push. In light of the the Steam machine, and I'm not saying that the Steam machine is a direct competitor per se. Well, I mean, I think that also depends on the pricing and everything of the Steam machine versus the pricing of the Xbox hybrid, right? Because if one's priced higher than the other, different specs. I mean, that potentially speaks to different consumers. But if I'm Microsoft, I'm probably pushing things like Game Pass with this PC hybrid as being the big differentiator here. Of why you should probably look at owning the PC hybrid on top of having access to all the storefronts.
Yeah. By the way, they just dropped the announcement trailer for Horizon Steel Frontiers. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
Yeah, I did hear about that. That's a mobile game, right?
It's a mobile game, but watch the trailer. It looks superb. It looks better than any mobile game I've seen. I'll tell you that. Like, it looks insane.
This is funny. This is what a lot of people were saying about, they're bringing their games to Xbox when they said they're bringing their games to platforms. Like, no, like,
yeah, I mentioned that in my tweet. Like,
they're bringing their games. Maybe in other platforms. It doesn't mean Xbox, right? Why would they support a console that's on its last legs, right? Like,
but this game looks fire, man. When I first heard, I was like, obviously
is it an MMO?
The MMO, yeah. They've been talking about like doing mobile stuff for a few years now. They've actually picked up mobile studios. They have a whole mobile development sector now. I forgot what it's called. They've had that, I think, since 2019. But I did kind of think, what's happened with that? Like, what are they? Obviously they're doing stuff in the background. But yeah, I mean, it looks far better and more ambitious than I possibly thought. And I am a bit gutted that it's not on PS5. I'll be honest. If this was on PS5, I might have actually given it a go.
But this is sort of what they've talked about, though. The strategy of taking existing IP and not just putting it on other platforms like mobile, but also leveraging IPs to create movies, television. Like, they've talked about these things.
Yeah.
And this goes back to kind of your question earlier. Will they go day and date on PC? Again, I say no too, because if I look at, the fact that they're trying to create these experiences that you can only get on the PlayStation console, right? And they start leveraging their IPs, the movies. I mean, all that has tie-in, right? I mean, we saw the bumps, The Last of Us, the video game after the HBO series. Same thing happened with Fallout when the Fallout series was released on Amazon. So I think
it's a weird thing.
I think leads back to the console. Yeah, go ahead.
Again, I don't want to put my console war hat on again, but it's always weird how so many people are always like, this is the future, this is the thing that you got to follow. And it's always the platform that is basically failing in each of their strategies and pivots that people think they should follow. But PlayStation is always kind of, some of it does cross-pollinate with things that Xbox does, but I don't think they're doing it because Xbox is doing it. I think they have had this kind of fixed strategy that they've advertised since 2019, by the way, in business presentations, from the PC ports, the staggered releases, the live service day to the mobile push. They've literally mentioned every single one of these things in those business presentations. So all they are doing is they are following through on what they already advertised they were going to do to investors, etc. They're kind of executing on that. But it's weird that people keep saying, they need to do this, they need to do that, like Xbox. But no, like, I think the things that PlayStation are doing, they're clearly conducive to their success. Obviously not all of it is panned out. Like you said, the live service stuff has faltered, but then on the movie and TV show adaptations, and Last of Us was great. Even Twisted Metal was done well, even though they don't have a game for it. They've got more in the works. The staggered PC stuff seems to be working and drawing more people to PlayStation, and like across the board, like that they seem to have good strategies that are bringing more and more consumers to PlayStation, and importantly, new consumers to PlayStation, because we often assume it's just PS4 people migrating, but again, and I've said before, PlayStation a few years back, they said a third of the PS5 owners were new to PlayStation. The last record-breaking quarter, 42% of people who bought a PS5 were new to PlayStation. So where are these new players coming from? They're clearly doing a good job of getting new people into PlayStation. And I know the next question, okay, if they're bringing so many new people to PS5, why are the numbers just in line with PS4 and not much higher? Because a lot of PS4 owners have not migrated yet, right? This is a very high-priced console still, even late in this game, and we don't have titles like GTA 6, which is a current gen only game that could be the real driver and push to finally get people to move over. So we haven't really had that same need for an exodus to migrate over, which is why I believe PlayStation keeps talking about, MAU in the sense of they're still getting, revenue from PS4 and PS5 consumers. But anyway, it'd be interesting.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, that's all I have for. I did want to get into Dispatch earlier. Are you playing?
Yeah. Talk
let-
about Dispatch, man.
Well, I
I'll
don't
be
want to give
honest,
you
the
any
whole
spoilers.
time
but-
I've been on your show, I've been like, oh, I really want to play Dispatch. Why am I on this podcast? No, don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed the conversation and everything, and I like being on your podcast. But Dispatch has got its hooks into me, man. It's got its hooks into me.
Yeah, it is. So it's like, so for those who don't know, it's a superhero game. Well, I should say superhero game. It's a game that features, it's almost like a dark comedy, I think. It has like that Telltale DNA to it, but probably as DBQ on your show, Game Logic said, it's more of a visual novel than it is Telltale. I mean, there are choices, there are dialogue choices. There is some, QTE if you enable it. But it is very much like a visual novel. But I'll say this: the story, the voice acting, the different characters. I mean, they're all great. It's all great. It's actually, and I said this to Logic earlier, coming off of Ghost of Yotei. For me at least, Dispatch has been a great palate cleanser.
Yeah, I said the same thing.
Yeah, like it is. It has been and like I hope I really do hope they release a season 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't want to give any spoilers away, but it's
so great. Like
it's really good.
So I don't know
it's one of my favorite games this year. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have this right. Sometimes like I kind of like max out on gaming. And I was getting to that stage, and I think multiplayer games burn me out more than single player games. I've been playing a lot of Battlefield 6 and Arc Raiders. And Arc Raiders especially.
We got out in 1 second.
What's that? Sorry.
I said we got out in 1 second. Remember that?
We got out 1 second. Yeah, exactly. 1 second left. That was crazy. But Arc Raiders, it's really fun, but it's quite a stressful and demanding game. And I don't mean demanding in like skill. I mean like obviously awareness. Like everyone's trying to kill you, or anyone could kill you at any point, and you're under a lot of tension all the time. And there's all this micromanaging.
Had a guy hiding behind a tree because he thought I was going to shoot him.
Literally.
Like, I'm like, hey, I'm not here to hurt you. And he's like I would try to like I would walk, and he would like move to position himself behind the tree. Where I'm like, hey, I'm not here to shoot you. And I'm like waving hello at him. I'm like.
I had a really funny situation yesterday where I didn't realize my proximity mic was turned off, right? So I came across this dude. I was solo, and if you haven't played Arc Raiders, like solo tends to be has less griefing than squads. Squads, for some reason, everyone's trying to kill everyone. Like, forget about trying to squad up with another squad. Like, they're just going to kill you. But solo, you can it's 50-50, basically. So anyway, I see this guy, and I'm following him. I haven't shot him or anything, but I'm just chasing, and he's like, "Fuck off, man! Like, why are you following me for?" And I'm like, "Dude, let's like tag team up, and we can do the missions together." And he's like, "Stop being a weirdo, just fuck off." He keeps like, and he's getting more and more angsty, and then he points his gun at me, and I'm like, "Dude, what is wrong with you?" And then I realize, oh my god, my mic is off, so I turned it on, And I was like, yo, chill. Like, I'm a friendly. But I had the skin on where all these videos are going viral, where everyone's like, if you see anyone in this skin, which is the only good skin, free skin in the game, in my opinion, they're like, kill them on sight. Don't ask questions. They're not to be trusted. And I feel stereotyped. I feel like I'm being, it's prejudiced here based on my appearance. Like literally because I'm wearing a certain skin, people are just more likely to kill me. And I'm like, no, I'm actually friendly and I try and help people. But anyway, like we ended up partying together and he was so nervous of me the entire time, which I found hilarious. Like even when we were looting and stuff, he'd have his gun out. He'd kept looking back at me like, I could tell he's like saying, don't shoot me in the back, I'm going to get you. And I was laughing internally, like, dude, I am not. I even helped him. And like when we went out on a mission, he added me on his friends list and I gave him the items that he wanted and everything. But anyway, I'm going on a long tangent. Point is, it's a very stressful game. Every time you extract is like high tension, high stress. So sometimes when I get into that mode where I'm gamed out, I usually just revert back to watching shows, right? Like on Netflix or whatever. Like I'll catch up. I'll do like a concentrated amount of show watching before I go back to gaming. And this is like perfect because it combines the two. I'm getting a chill, vibing out, really entertaining, beautifully animated and acted game, but it, like you said, it's like a graphic novel, so it kind of satiates both things. I'm getting that like not obviously it has the story has a lot of dips and valleys and emotion and everything else, but I'm getting that kind of like let's just say casual and accessible feel with the game where I can just kick back and enjoy this experiential thing without all this mechanical complexity. But at the same time, I'm still playing a game. So I love it. Like, and I just got Invincible type vibes. Obviously not as gory and stuff, but it is an adult comic game, and it has dark humor. It has all of that stuff. It has that comedy and to even dick jokes and stuff. So I don't know, if it feels like a really fun time, and I love the whole like music, the art direction. I think the animation, like I said before, is superb. But I would say if you haven't played this game, like it's not very expensive. I think it's like £27 or something. The final episodes dropped today. Give it a go, man. Like, especially if you want a palette cleansing game, like we've said, just something to give a whole different pace and dynamic. 100% buy this game, Dispatch. Like, it is really strong, really
Yeah,
strong.
it's actually doing very well. I think I read something where I think it's close to hitting. Hold on a sec here. I know it sold like 1 million copies in a short period of time. Give me a sec here. There was something.
Yeah, I know it's like
Here
the
we
peak
go.
concurrent players on Steam is really high as well. I think over 100,000.
Yeah, Dispatch is on course to beat its 3-year sales target in 3 months. Yeah, that was an article on GameIndustry.biz. Yeah,
Nice.
so
Yeah,
that's
it's
great.
cool.
I mean,
I was going to get Lumines Arise as my like palette cleansing game. And this came along, and what a time to be a gamer right now, man. There's just it's just insane. Like, I feel sorry for people who have really narrow tastes in gaming, but or people who like are constantly dogging on the gaming industry. Oh, gaming is bad. All this other shit about how we're getting taken advantage of and everything's monetized. But like, yeah, some of that is true, but we still have an abundance of quality and diversity across the board. Like, look at the different types of games, quality games we've been playing, from friggin' this to Blueprints to Expedition 33 to Death Stranding 2. Like, how many AAA games are like Death Stranding 2? Like, it's it's not even so action focused. Like, it is kind of like a strategy deliver a courier game, which is unique in the AAA space. I just think it's an amazing time to be a gamer, and which is why we're going back to our conversation earlier with these like grifters and all the hate and vitriol that they're literally always just complaining about gaming, which makes that so much sadder, because in a time where gamers should be happy and celebrating the abundance of quality and artistic differentiation that we get, people are worried about this other nonsense instead. Yeah, Game of the Year is going to be a hard choice this year, man. Or at least my listing is going to be, it's going to be a tough one. Like, what goes where.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, gentlemen, that's all I have for topics tonight. Logic, any closing thoughts?
I just wanted to answer one question in the chat. So Magnetar Lord asked, Game Logic, are they not releasing Steam OS to general PCs like they're doing with the handhelds? If so, just wait and build a PC with Steam OS. What I would say to that is you can do that now. I ran a Linux box in here. Well, I've run Linux boxes several times before, but specifically for gaming, I built a Linux box that ran Ubuntu with Steam as a client app on top of it. So again, you can do that now. The problem is, or the difference in value prop is yes, you can do that. Yes, you can actually run it and get performant hardware, but then it's on you, right? And you've got to learn or remember how to sudo apt get to grab all your drivers. It's catch as catch can, whether or not NVIDIA is really committed to supporting the Linux operating system, and that wavers over time. AMD stuff is open source, so that's fine. But then, if you've got, a gaming keyboard and mouse and, who knows what type of peripherals, it's up to you to track down Linux versions of those. They're in fact rarely often formally supported by the first party vendor. And you've likely got to go out and find drivers that have been rolled by, an open source community. So the difference is that it's not bespoke, right? Like lots of times when I need a Linux platform, I will just buy a laptop from System 76 because they pre-build it and they package all that stuff and they do all that stuff for you, at least to get you started. What I don't know, SteamOS in a distribution that's coming out to general PCs, what I don't know is I don't have any reason to believe that will not just be a Linux distro that will have Steam Big Picture mode, right, enabled, that you can call up. I don't know that you're going to pull it down and it's going to have scripts that automatically go out and grab like every different driver under heaven for what your hardware might be and pull that down for you and roll it. I just strongly suspect it's still going to be on you to put all that stuff together. Once you have it put together, then you can run SteamOS kind of, and maybe it'll seem a little bit like a Steam Deck, but I don't know that it's going to have all the automation and stuff in there that like a Steam Deck or Steam machine has. So the capability is there. The shopping cart will be there for you to go pull those parts off the shelf. But I think the system, the self-sysadmin and the systems integration part, I think is still going to be on the user. So I don't know that that's a viable alternative for anything other than the PC enthusiast DIY crowd. And I don't think that the Steam machine is aimed at that crowd.
Before you gentlemen go, can I just, I know you'll probably have a show on Game of the Year, but what are your Game of the Year so far? I just realized I don't know.
Mine right now is Expedition 33.
Okay, same. Yeah. What about you?
And then after that, I would say Ghost of Yotei.
Oh, really? Ghost of Yotei is number 2. That's interesting. I still have Death Stranding 2 ahead of it.
Yeah, I'd say the same. Expedition 33 and Ghost.
And Ghost is your number 2 as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the Ghost winds up ahead of Death Stranding 2, just because to me, Ghost is easier to digest and kind of get into and kind of get immersed and live in the world. Whereas I feel like with Death Stranding 2 is still just a lot of baggage. Like, and not to say like it's more work. Like it starts to skew in the direction of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, right? Just
I totally understand. I will say I've kind of had a really difficult internal battle between like ranking those two, because it's a weird one. I totally get what you mean. Like Ghost of Yotei was like that enjoyable, accessible overall experience, even though I played it on the hardest difficulty, which was amazing, by the way, like super fun. But I think Death Stranding 2 for me still had higher highs. You know, especially those like weird, like not dream sequences, but when he goes into that kind of, you know, the other worldly areas, like especially those, and some of the moments throughout, I feel like I still had more emotional resonance, and I was just more taken aback, especially by the fireworks level and stuff like that. I just thought, this is insane. But I get you. It could go either way. So even though PlayStation hasn't had many exclusives or console exclusives this year, I think of the three that I have played, I think all three are actually superb games. Like Ghost of Yotei, Death Stranding 2, and Sword of the Sea. Like Sword of the Sea is also one of my favorite games of the year. In fact, there's so many good games that I'm just friggin' like perplexed right now as to how to do my list. But yeah, quality. Okay, so Expedition 33 for all three of us.
Yeah, I think one statement I'd make, just to wrap up, is in terms of like Death Stranding 2 versus Ghost of Yotei, and like you said, they're both great games. It's not really a competition, right? But I mean, for me, it's a matter of I can just launch Ghost and just start riding across the countryside, and shit will just happen, right?
Gotcha.
I'll just run into stuff, and literally an entire story arc will just unfold that I was not anticipating or I hadn't planned. Whereas I feel like in Death Stranding 2, you have to be more deliberate. Right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And you have to decide where you're going. Right. You have to deliberately go
plan
after
your gear and goods. Yeah. All of that. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. It's very. Yeah, I think it would make for a good. Are you going to have a Game of the Year discussion show, right? It's gone.
No, I'm here. Sorry, I was muted. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe. We'll see.
Cool.
Who knows? Dispatch might be in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not far enough to say yet, but I think it could be. I really think it could be. I don't want to say that because people mock us. Like I've heard people say about us, like on Mooch's podcast, "Oh, we always just glaze everything," But the thing is, like, we're not just. There has been amazing games. Like, there's literally been. Yeah, I can't help it. Like, what do you want me to do? Speak bad about games that are great? Like, I can't do that. Like, I have to be honest. But yeah, I absolutely do think Dispatch could be in the conversation. It's not going to be my Game of the Year, I doubt, but certainly potentially in my top 5.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Well, that's it for tonight's show. Everyone in the live chat, thanks for hanging out with us this evening. Please do me a favor, hit the like button. Helps people discover the channel, and if you're new, consider subscribing, hitting the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. Big shout out to David Falke, by the way, for joining us earlier this evening. Also want to give a big thank you to our other guest, Nib, for joining us. Nib, probably we'll see you on Crossfire tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thanks for jumping on again. I appreciate it.
No, 100%. It was good. Good conversation.
Yeah.
Now I've had my power nap and my podcast talk is straight into Dispatch.
And then Gabe, aka Game Logic, thank you again. Always a pleasure. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we'll be back next week, and be here talking more video game related news topics. And we'll catch you next time. Everyone, enjoy the rest of the week and have fun playing video games, because ultimately that's what it's all about. It's about having fun and enjoying this great hobby, this great form of interactive entertainment that we all love. And on that note, we're out. We'll catch you next time. Thank you for watching.